Hey, if anybody sees this. So if you feel like helping out, because I sure can use your help, urgent as it always is. Michael Adams, PayPal, me, RD3, PayPal, RD3, Michael Adams. Our Cash App, Michael Adams, RD3. You can help out, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome. So, who's in the house? Anybody yet? My Maylands birdies. What's going on? Thanks for joining me. So, anyways, today it's going to be a hodgepodge of ideas and concepts and possible answers to our reality. At least I feel that we'll get a lot closer to answering some questions about what this place actually is. If it is what we clearly see before our eyes. You can see it right before your eyes. So, anyways, what I'm thinking about doing is playing Rebellious Meat Puppets' latest video. He's in sync with me, except he's got a bit of an issue. Doesn't want to be a friend. So, it always seems to be that way. Now, why is it that people don't want to be friends? Especially when you have opinions about stuff. That's like faux pas, right? That's so inappropriate in the world that we live today. So, yeah, I've been thinking a lot about my week investigating Henry Franzoni. So there are so many possible red flags, it's ridiculous. So, but I know one thing, I'm just and I don't know, this year the spirits are telling me take a break, driver, right? You already know we exist. By the way, you're looking at some of the images I actually filmed. You look pretty close. There's some entities there for sure. Hooded people. And in the middle there, if you pay really close attention, there's actually several dwarfish looking entities. They're not Bigfoot. So, which begs the question. Now, Henry, I didn't get a chance to really say anything. So one of the things I discovered about control freaks, they keep on talking, and you have to really fight to get into the conversation. You really got, you feel like you're butting in, but it's supposed to be a conversation, not a lecture. But I don't think any of us need a lecture, do we, these days? So I know. Where was I going to go with that? Oh yeah, so the first thing is the personality traits. So I noticed a lot of these guys that are kind of like the cream of the crop, the most popular guys in the Bigfootery. This book, by the way, this is not a uniquely a Bigfoot thing, right? This is across the board. I'm noticing this in just about every genre out there. You know what I mean? Whether it's UFOs, paranormal, Bigfootery, alternative media, ultra conspiratorial stuff, whatever, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. But one thing I noticed is that a lot of guys we interviewed this past 2 months have very strong personalities. Maybe that's the reason why I clash with them a little bit. Maybe I have too strong personality. I have no idea. You guys are my sounding board. That's about all I got. I have my 12.5-year-old son, but he don't give a crap what dad says and thinks. He just wants to make sure his belly gets fed and he can go to like the skate park and just don't try not to embarrass me. You know what I mean? This world is one hell of a place. Emphasizing hell. Hell. Place? What the hell? Your guess is as good as mine. And to me, that's an incredibly big issue. That we, in 2024, are expect to basically believe in just about every gosh damn thing out there, I say. I mean, literally, just about every damn thing, right? Everything's based on a belief system, and it's not based on much as far as verifiable, evidentiary stuff, facts, whatever you want to call it. Some scientist person say, we don't focus on the facts. We're not interested in facts. We're looking for data, for information, for evidence to support some particular premises. Hell on earth, hell yeah. That's all right. Oh, I forgot to say this also. While I'm babbling on, I'm supposed to remember to bring up your comments. So, hell on earth, heck yeah, man. You know, I really truly believe that we just might be there. Or definitely in something that's been coming out lately. A new catchphrase, if you will. Guys like Mark from Forever Conscious Research Channel, and guys like, it's a Dan. God, I can't remember his channel. I haven't watched his channel in a while. And others. Anyways, so this whole thing about this reincarnation, soul trap, a matrix. And I actually think there's something to it. I honestly think there's something to it. Because now, in quite with the reincarnation, I know everything's so damn freaking subjective. You can't prove a freaking thing about it. You know what? I can show you these images. I can see them as clear as day. I can see the hood. I mean, I can see this. I can see the eyes. She's wearing a mask and she's wearing a hood. And she looked like a little, I don't know, something. She's got another friend on the other side there. And they got this dwarfy dude right here. And he's got a hat. He's got a buddy right next to him. And they're standing there. And I see this stuff all the time in other people's images. And then there's the hooded dude right here. You know what I mean? The long, his eyes, his droopy eyes, and his hat and all that. And he's wearing a cape. And I can see that as clear as day. I point that out to everyone else, and that just goes right over the head. And I'm just saying, you know what? There's an issue here on so many levels. And we'll start with Bigfootery for a little bit. Every freaking damn thing that's in the woods has to be blamed on Sasquatch. You have to go back. I know, isn't it? It is. Well, think about what you just said there. Absolutely. If reincarnation is true, in which multiple cultures throughout history have believed in this reincarnation stuff, and they give you this line of BS. It's like, oh yeah, there's lessons you need to learn, right? You're evolving, and here's the other, like, one of the things is like, oh yeah, so it's like karma's involved in it, right? And you gotta fix your karma. You know what I mean? Gotta correct some things. You gotta, like, okay, you're a really bad person last life. You know, don't remember a damn thing about your last life, and you don't remember. You have total amnesia. You don't remember anything about what happened the last time, why you were there, who you were, who you're with, what country you lived in, what race you were you a male or female. Maybe you're a donkey. Who the hell knows? But you know what? You got to come back here, and you're not going to remember a freaking thing of anything you did last life, or maybe the past 10 lives, or maybe it's the past 100 lives. Guys, was flip a coin. Who the hell knows how many lives? It's so fascinating when you think about it. Question: why do you think our cameras are can see entities, but we can't see them with our own eyes? Well, my theory is it's a very damn good question. I honestly believe that. I've been thinking about that for years now because I started filming this stuff like back in 2017, right? I haven't showed you guys in my old stuff. I like this ghost effect, by the way. I know it's probably gonna drive everybody nuts, but I don't think I'm going to get a green screen because I like this fading out. And you know what I mean? Especially doing it like night and that kind of stuff. I think it's kind of fun. What's going on, um, Mr. Davy Jones? I like the interviews with George and with Henry. Oh, thank you, man. Kind of well, the one with George is more like an introduction and conversation. With Henry, well, it was all Henry talking. There's a lot of red flags in all that talking, but it's maybe we'll talk about that, or maybe one. I'm not interested in throwing the man under the bus, but at the same token, and I'm not interested in all the drama. But man, there was a lot of red flags, man. It just um, if there's lessons to be learned, then why don't we just live forever until we learn it? And what a damn good question. And what a damn yeah. What the hell's wrong with there? This whole reincarnation BS is like, and I wouldn't be surprised that it's actually real. The way this place is set up and everything, I mean, across the board, I mean, you name it, politics, scientism, religion, all the different branches of the science, school, your family, television, people at work. It's one freaking giant guessing game is what it is. And it's your fault and my fault. It's our fault that we live in this giant guessing game. And we're supposed to be perfect. God knows what that actually is, but we're supposed to be perfect. Like Yahweh, Allah, Yabba Dabba Doo. I mean, Fred Flintstone. Who are we supposed to be as perfect with? I mean, when we look at the God or the demons, this entity that created this place, maybe we are behaving just like it. Maybe we do have a piece of this thing. Yeah, ghost effects is fine. Yeah, for me, I'm going to do it. I know it's going to drive people nuts, but I'm like, okay, everyone's becoming such sellouts at this point, right? Everyone has to, instead of like going for the gusto, going for something that's really meaningful. It's all about making a name and a presence for yourself on the internet, and everything has to be just perfect and just fine. And you got to have the right music, and you got to have the right length, and you got to have this many things. You got to have this many shorts and this many videos are X minutes long, and you got to play this stupid game that Google. Remember that the military and the oligarchs and the government, right, control and manipulate, it's and they treat us like freaking Pavlov's dog. They treat us like freaking dogs, like rats in a cage. Do this, do that, come on. Meanwhile, we're all losing our freaking minds. Maybe I think we've always been crazy, but we really are. At least our parents were aware of one thing. They're more likely to be present at some point during the day than us. That's shocking to think about that. You think about how we are so, and you know what? So, Mike, what are you going to do about it? You're going to get off the internet. I got damn close last year. I went months with but I still was on TikTok with a group of people deconstructing from Christianity. So I used my time wisely. Most of the time I was just learning how to play my acoustic guitar, to be honest with you. And I was about as present as I've been in a long time. But this stuff, you know what I mean? But I think it's important in many ways still if it's used wisely and then quote unquote intelligently. And if you try to find, what's your purpose here? You know what I mean? Are you here to be entertained solely, or do you want to learn something? You know what I mean? Because I'm tired of being entertained. I think if I hear another fake ass false story, I'm going to freaking puke. That's what I think I'm going to do. But at the same time, this is how screwed up this place is. I have my own high strangeness, my own weird story. I'm filming stuff. I really did have encounters with Sasquatch in 2017. At least this shit looked like it. I'm questioning now if it was just a giant light show. Mind you, I did go and give it a bear hug to find out if we were buddies or not. But a lot of weird things happen. Very much paranormal, poltergeist-like stuff. Now, I'm hearing the big shots say things otherwise, and I'm starting to question who they actually are. Now, there is such a thing. The government, the military, the oligarchs. Remember, the government and the military are just weapons for the oligarchs to keep you and I down because we're the slave class. We're nobodies in their eyes. In fact, they see us as vermin, the profane. And they also see us as a threat. So do you think, honestly, that they would allow? I mean, I saw firsthand when I was a hardcore punker back in the 80s. I saw how they freaking, I didn't know at the time, right? It took me years of processing it and talking to other people. One of the people that really helped me, I had a friend. His name was David McGowan. He's no longer with us. He wrote this book called Weird Scenes in the Canyon, right? And it's about Laurel Canyon and how they created the 60s music movement, right? The anti-war movement, because the anti-war movement was really a serious problem. People really didn't want us to end the Vietnam War for a decade, almost a decade, 5 years at least. So anyways, and so what they did, not only because out of Laurel Canyon, that's where we got all those really dry and boring movies and videos that at times actually taught you something, sometimes like about maybe physics or something like that, but most of the time it was some dude in a suit and tie, and he had this crazy ass voice and a crazy ass stern authoritative personality. Had the perfect voice, you know what I'm saying? Perfect freaking voice, right? And they always, I mean, you like, and you see these guys and you're like, just imagine that was your dad. Holy crap. Can you imagine that being your dad? Oh, God. Well, at least they'd have money and they go on 2 or 3 vacations a day. All right. So anyways, there's this thing called propaganda. And, you know, one of the things about us in the United States, North America, we're the most propagandized group of people in the whole world. And thinking that we're not propagandized. They really have done a fantastic job of doing that, right? And if people think that the internet is not part of that mind control, MK Ultra steroids, you know, it's more than MK Ultra port 200, whatever that was. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, my point in all this is that, you know, me being in the truther movement on and off for the past decade, 6 years, I've seen firsthand, had happen to me, how they censor you, how they manipulate you, how they use analytics to bury you, and these new games they keep on throwing at you when it comes to the Google world, right? And I'll get thrown. Believe me, my channel will eventually be dropped just as other was before, because at some point I start talking this way again because I can't help myself, you know, because I am sick of the bullshit. Oh yeah, propaganda, and they know how to trigger people. What is your Bigfoot story? Oh, my Bigfoot story. Well, you can go to my channels, and I think I did. I know I did. I just uploaded maybe last week interview from Linda Eastburn. She interviewed me about some of my stories in 2017, but my story is crazy. I'll get to there. Maybe I'll get to there. Since you're asking, and then you're interacting with me, maybe we'll get to there. So my point in all this is propaganda. So, and how they use the internet. And what do we mean by propaganda? And today it's called mind control. What's up, Raptor? Sorry, the subject of Bigfoot's the best thing to do is make sure these people are showing video evidence or picture evidence of what they're talking about. If not, it's all fake, in my opinion. Bro, you might seem like a pain in the ass, but I think you might be right about the whole damn thing. Sorry, my comments ran together. I was just curious about your Bigfoot story, is your encounters. So yeah, you just asked me that thing. Raptor's like, well, like, shit, unless you got pictures and video, fuck it. Damn, I'm screwed. What's going on, sovereign cosmic wildman? I can't. Who am I supposed to please now? But you know what? Sovereign is right, and I tell her, not sovereign. Well, he is. You're right too, sovereign. But I was talking about Raptor. Raptor is right too about this. Not having pictures, video evidence. Not if you're not there. You should take my story with a grain of salt, and you shouldn't just blindly believe what I have to say. But I will show you my story because I know what my story is, and I expect you not to believe my story. But if you do believe my story, I would say, you're an awfully gracious person. Maybe it's because you have something similar. But outside of that, I can't see why anybody would believe my story. But my story started in 2017. You see, I was sick of the truther movement on the internet. And back then, we still had some kind of a truther movement. Today is like, good luck freaking finding it. Good luck trying to find it. Yo, Mike, it's right. Good luck trying to find. What am I trying to say? Oh, the real alternative underground conspiracy, if you will. Just people like us are like pester. We're like fleas that bug the system, the matrix, and always bring up stuff. Contradictions, and what the Jesuits were up to, or what the Vatican was up to, or what did the other group that starts with J is up to, and you're not allowed to talk about, because if you talk about that, you get actually just nuked, which is amazing and it's all right and something to think about. But it's and I'm not being racist or anything like that. It's just how this place works. You know what I mean? So 2017, I was really discouraged with the truther movement. At the time, I was also involved with the Christian truther, right? The right side of the truther movement, right? I was still at the time thinking that maybe the hope for my salvation was going to be the egregore, the one and only JC. Well, I got whenever I do something, I'm kind of like one of these dudes that just goes for it. Like, say, if I got in a relationship with a chick, that's all it's going to be about, right? That's what it's going to be about. That's why I don't want to be in a relationship with a chick, because I got other things I got to work out in my head. Because if I get in a relationship with a chick, because that's how I work is, I'm very linear, and I'm very, I guess they say it's obsessive a little bit, maybe, but I don't think so. I just learned through life. For me, I can't multitask very well, and I also discovered that if I focus on something a lot, put as much energy and time in that within a month or two, I'll probably know more about that topic than 90% of the people around me. Now, it wasn't because to control people. I just wanted to know the truth. I discovered this. I don't feel like I'm better than anybody else. In fact, a lot of times I feel like there's an absolute curse, and I wish I just had a hot chick making love to you right now, and just was as stupid as fuck. That's what I wish. I think I can still accomplish the stupid as fuck part, but I don't think at this point there's going to be any hot chick. Cool. Thanks. Thanks. Thank you for checking out. Thank you for being here, by the way. And even you, Raptor, could I say, the best thing to do is please yourself of what? Please yourself of what people say, and do you think it is real, and don't hate. I don't hate your channel. Oh, cool. Thanks. I don't hate you too either, Raptor. It's good to have the someone to keep us in line. The truth was more raw back then. It sure heck was, man. Even if we might have been wrong about a few things. But man, we went at it back then. We were going at it, man. It was 2015. I mean, we were going at it, everything from challenging the heliocentric model, the geocentric model, the flat Earth model. We're challenging, man, we were finding stuff, all the freaking kinks. And when it comes to the moon landing, hoax, we were finding kinks all over the place. We were finding all the chinks and their armor, man, and we were like poking at them like gnats, like a swarm of mosquitoes slowly taking the blood out of them. And they knew this was going, but they needed to do it anyways. And the reason why they needed to do it is to find out who the hell is still thinking and how could we distract them from critically thinking. And it's a very challenging thing. And I understand that a lot of people, what they do is they just ignore all this stuff, right? They just put themselves in their limited hangout and their in their cubicle. I mean, there's a lot of bright intellectual atheists and deists and people are high, critics of all sorts of things. Particularly, they're really good at like atheists. If you want to learn about your religion, hang out with atheists. They'll remind you of how screwed up your religion is, and they'll get you to start thinking about stuff. So I don't think it's a bad thing. But I also know that because of that, what they do when it comes to religion is they try to keep you in your cubicle and your limited hangout called religion, and that you have to act like a Reformed Baptist or God, I can't think of anything. There's Baptists, there's evangelicals. Why can't I think of the crazy guys, the people that are always healing people and they're all walking around like chickens with their heads cut off? Pentecostal, that's what it is. Apostolic Pentecostal. I mean, that was part of my. So see, he says, you might like, man, why is he talking about Jesus and religion? Because it's a big part of my story, it really is. Because what happened was in 2009, I was jamming with this swine flu jibby jab, and I got MS, and I ended up losing everything. And then, literally, in the process, in 2 years, 2.5 years, what a bitch. But the thing is that between that and having my son, I started waking up to reality. Because before then, I was this dude that was just about his music, his art, and the hot chick he was going to make love to that night. You know what I mean? The night decent job. I still was a good son. I still took care of my niece, who was paralyzed from her head to her toes with glutaric aciduria type 1, a disease that they supposedly says genetic, but I think it truly was. With the infant jibbity jab back then, there was a lot of children that ended up being damaged back then. There was case of it, right? But they said it was because, the predominant, that's what I was told, at least you can't trust anybody. So, but like the vast majority of children that end up with that had a Gibboi blood in them. And of course, that's that right. So, and of course, that's what they've been doing. That's one of the things with the eugenics program. It's just something you must think about and be very careful about what's going on. If you're one of the half-breeds, or if you're one of somebody with a certain type of, skin color and all that kind of stuff, and you come from a certain background, and say you're not one of the, part of the club, as George Carlson says, there's a big club, and you're probably not in it, because if you're in it, you're not hanging out with me right now. You don't even want to hear about what I'm about to say or anything about me. The only people that are part of the club that are hanging out right now with me are the ones who've been censoring me and watching me and waiting for me to screw up again, and I'm sure I will. But that means that they'll find an excuse to get rid of my ass. What they've done this round is that they've kept me around 500, right, subs. They won't let me get past that. And they'll eventually let me. It will slowly creep up. They're playing this game, right? And I'm not saying I deserve any more than that, and I don't even care. But I know what they're doing. The one thing I do care is that I would like to have people hear my stuff. Those people are chosen. You know what I mean? The ones who've been chosen. The ones that the familiar spirits Generally, it was still some spirits, and the spirits that are around us who decided to prick your conscience and have you come here and listen to a madman that will then eventually lead you to other madmen. But eventually, if you listen to us all, you'll start to get a broader picture of the shit show that you're in. It's be tough. Don't get me wrong, because you're going to go through some serious depression. But if you get through it, and you adjust and you say, okay, this is the situation I'm really in, and I know it, and the people around me aren't prepared to know it and can't handle it and don't want to ever know it. And you hear this across the board, and so it gets so confusing, it's so convoluted, right? And everybody thinks they're the guru, the guy with the right answer, right? And got it all figured out. And I know I sound like the same guy, and I'm just like, but the thing is, I've sticking my foot in my mouth so many times, and I've learned something through life, is let's make amends and say, you know what? Part of making amends is saying, I was freaking wrong. And when it came to Jesus and when it came to the Bible, I was really freaking wrong. When it came to the Christian portion of the truther movement, I was really wrong in being in that group. But there was just not them, because there was other dark groups too, especially in the Bigfootery, man. Dude, I'm going to tell you something. If you think the military is not involved with this, and I'm talking about social media, I'm talking about a lot of those channels, and they always got those, like, we're crafty about this. What they say is they give you like a list of questions, yes or no questions. And they'll tell you, our group is a flesh and blood Bigfoot group, right? And, emphasize that. Do you understand that in our group, we cannot talk about anything else except what Jeff Milram says, who, by the way, is clearly an agent and is part of the weaponization of anthropology. And he just miraculously showed up. But he's a good guy. He's a Mormon. I was a Mormon once, too. I was on a Mormon mission 30-some years ago. I know all about Mormons. I used to serve side by side with Senator Hatch, is one of his spoiled sons. He was much taller than me. He had a scholarship waiting for him after the 2-year service to go to I think it was it Provo or was it Utah, state of Utah? Probably was the BYU. You know what I mean? Full ride. Well, Daddy said, and Senator Hatch, man, he's a Mormon, man. My proudest thing I accomplished in those 1 or 2 months that I served every day with that jerk was I made him cry. I feel so proud of myself for making him cry. And you might say, that's really mean of you. But no, I'm serious. That guy was the most arrogant, selfish, self-centered, egotistical prick that I ever met. And he was all about himself. And this one of the things, I didn't finish my Mormon mission. I had 2 months left. And at that point, I was halfway through it. I remember there was a guy, a companion of mine. He turned to me, Mr. Adams. Oh, no, not Mr. Adams. Elder Adams. You share your testimony about God. And I turned to the pretty girl that we talked to in some flat in London. And I said, I don't know God. I don't think I have a clue what who God is. Well, that pretty much ruined the party. And we soon left that place. And that was the beginning of the end, And, just like every other cliquish, small group cult that you're in, word spreads. And there was going to be no district leader or zone leader for Elder Adams, that's for sure. They soon had me, which was a blessing, by the way. I always talk about blessings, right? It was a fantastic freaking thing that they threw me out in the outskirts, and the edges alone with some of the most dysfunctional more missionaries there ever was. You know what I mean? I had one guy, Dilbert Wayne Gardner. He was a hick and a cowboy from Flagstaff, Arizona, and his family, they had like a logging business, and they were into the rodeo and stuff like that. I remember we used to, like, in the middle in our flat at night, one of the things he would want to do is like He would start trying to lasso me. He brought his lasso with him. So he's always lassoing my legs or my arms or my head or whatever, you know what I mean? It was really bizarre. And the other thing about Dilbert is that he loved chewing tobacco, but on his mission he was allowed to chew tobacco. And there's another problem back then. There was no chewing tobacco in England. So what he did, he does a great idea, and it was the worst thing you ever can do. Don't ever try to chew, take the tobacco out of your cigarettes and try to turn that into chewing tobacco, because it's going to be nasty. I'm like totally losing everybody here, aren't I? It was something about Bigfoot and all that. But the thing is, I'm an old man. I've been around the block myself. But I'm going to tell you something. I've been around like guys like Henry. And all I can say, folks, there's huge red flags. And I've seen how they play with these groups, like, the Bigfootery, and how they created this cult, and how they divided us, the alien dialectic from the right and left, Republican, Democrat, flesh and blood, woo, BS, right? You know what I mean? And he brings it up, but then he brings up all the other stuff, and there's always something they got to throw in there that to just to make it just more bizarre and more fucked up. You know what I mean? And to get people really thinking and going down the wrong direction. That's the most important thing. They want you to go down the wrong direction. They don't want you to find out what's really going on, because, our ancestors, they knew about it, and they were, they liked their spirits. They liked their form of animism and their form of paganism, if you like. Of course, the most pagan religion I discovered, and it's all topsy-turvy. It's the law of reversal constantly. Christians accuse everyone else of being pagan, but Christianity is probably the most pagan religion you will ever find once you understand what paganism is and you understand Christianity, especially the New Testament. I mean, Jesus is the perfect description of a demigod. Now, if you look at what Greeks and how they created all these many different demigods, and one of the first things is, what is a demigod? It's got a father god and an earthly woman. And they've been playing that for a long time. Of course, they will now throw into the Genesis 6 unless you learn how to read in the 5th grade level, and you actually read the book for what it says, and you're going to know real fast that God was not angry at the angels. He was angry with man. But you know what the perfect description, the perfect candidate for Sasquatch or a Bigfoot is? And I've told you, I'll tell you again, and I challenge you, read it. Go to verses 25 and 27 of Genesis and find out about Esau and Jacob. And you'll see that Esau is a perfect description of a hairy hominid from head to toe. There was a great hunter. There was a man of the wild and of the field. These metaphors. So the only way you can even read between the lines is if somebody shows you that, or you have your own experiences. But Jacob is plain, fair skinned like you and I, a tent dweller, a conniver, a heel grabber, someone who deceived and robbed the inheritance of this hairy hominids, this Sasquatch. Although the story says, if you read towards the end, Sasquatch ends up getting his inheritance after all. He gets his revenge. Is it true? I don't know. Now we start thinking about what I just said. If you actually read that, you're going to see that. And then you see what Harry has to say. And it says that, Sasquatch is like a more powerful being than us, and they've been in charge. And like our job is like we're like supposed to tend the garden, right? This place, we're stewards of this place. That's what our job is. And there's a being above us that's still here too, is with us, and that's called Sasquatch. And he's claiming that Sasquatch has been working with the military underground Well, I don't see any fucking reason, first of all, to be hiding this stuff if they're more superior than us and they're so dreadfully afraid of us when they're above us and they're managing us. This is what Harry says, and he says, and that our job is to, be a steward of this place, and yet the supervisor class, a group of entities, he says, Sasquatch, they're supposed to be supervising us. And here's the problem, man. We're freaking failing at this miserably, right? And we're, because of, we have to, we're in a situation, right? There's a combination of things, right? But we're failing miserably with being a good steward to this place, right? The pollution and everything else, and just how we develop things and how we, infrastructure and all. It just goes on and on. So we all know this, right? But so we're failing miserably. So then the buck has to go with who? Does it go with the employees, because that's what we are, or does it go with middle management, or the CEO? And so the reason we're fucking up is because Bigfoot's a fuck up. Basic is what he's saying. Bigfoot's a big fuck up. That other people will want you to treat Bigfoot like a freaking demigod. Omniscient, and omnipresent, and can be anywhere and everywhere and do all sorts of things. Like a demigod. You think I'm making this stuff up? I'm not. Where were we at when I learned? I sorry for skipping, everybody. Yeah, let's check. Okay, let's think about. Did I check that? Okay, please yourself. Let me say that. Where are we at? DB2 is obviously. I've been missing somebody. We'll go over here. We already saw that. We can go there. Obviously, what's going on, man? What's going there? What's going on? And it's called throttling. It's called throttling, how they censor the channels that are exposing the larger truths. They'll put crap on sub and view counts. They do. I watched them. I've watched all sorts of. I once watched. So when I did the show with Mike Patterson, right? And that's probably the largest thing, viewing the counts I've had so far. People are really interested in it, right? And so, but I watched it. I literally watched, and there's no way because a lot of times what you do, if you watch your own stuff for a couple of times, maybe just check out things or whatever it may be. Maybe it's just an ego trip, you know what I mean? Sometimes you just want to have that big friggin' ego trip and you watch a show over and over again. A lot of times what I do is I record it again so that I can put it on BitChute and other places, right? The lower bit rate and all that. Anyways, where was that in all this? So got 20 things in my mind. Oh yeah, censor that's throttling. So I watched that. I watched literally 150 views drop right before my eyes during after like the day after, like 24 hours after having that show with Mike Patterson. I literally watched it. Somewhere I put it, I even snipped it. I should have, if I know I was talking about it, I would freaking have brought that up, showed it. So, but I put the snipping tool on it. So they sure the hell do that. And mind you, maybe. So when you were on Nikki, you were talking about Bigfoot. Now you're talking about spiritual and entities and everything else, and that was what you were involved with. I've been doing that all along, man. I have most of the time. I don't talk like Bigfoot all the time. I go in spurts, right? One of the things I've been doing this past 4 months is just trying to have some final resolution on what happened to me in 2017. Because the Bigfoot community does not have an answer for me. And I guess I was delusional for having that. So I talk all about all sorts of stuff. I do talk about spirit realm, but I don't think spirits are what most people think they are. I think there's interdimensional beings, there's parallel universes, and just like we have here in our reality, there's lower and upper life forms like rabbits and squirrels and sparrows and worms and all sorts of kinds of things. And I think that's what we're dealing with here. Some mid-range life forms and interdimensional, some parallel universe that somehow we can capture. Somebody asked about the camera. Why do we capture these things on film? We can't see them. Well, sometimes we do see them, but it has something to do with the camera lens is a power to penetrate further into the visible visible electromagnetic spectrum. We can't do it. There's trade-offs with that too. So if, like a camera, like we can, that periphery vision, it's not perfect, but if you had decent eyesight, you can see a lot of stuff still in front of you, right? You can't see anything behind you and above you, and that's a big issue. But how we're designed, but you still got this great, a greater view of things, right? That's the reason why I like it. It's like a great example is always try to take a picture of the moon, if you're without zooming in, increasing the magnification, and actually get a decent picture with your camera or your cell phone, right? Because the lens is much smaller. So what happens is, what happens, like our eyes, when we see the moon, is much bigger, right? Take a picture of it, and it's much, much smaller. It's like hardly in there. Here's a great example. So it has something to do with light refraction. It has something to do with the lenses of your cameras. So we got better digital cameras. Now, why do you think they build that? They've always been interested in this. If you spend any time or attention looking into spiritualism and the spiritualist movement, you realize that this has always been the number one issue for most people, even the oligarchs and really elite. It's to know what the hell that apparition was, or was that really Aunt Margaret, or was that my mom that showed up? You know what I mean? And that's what they've been interested in. And the original reasons why they even started making cameras was not for you and I to make or take family portraits or, selfies or, crotch shots. You know what I mean? I mean, it is to film these things, these interdimensional beings. That's the reason why they did it. Honest to God. That's the original reason. And then afterwards, then they decided to use it for other things like history, documenting history, or, family portraits or propaganda. That was the next move, actually. It went from there to how can we use this as propaganda to manipulate the masses? And that's what they started doing. Because if you read like Lords of the Press, you'll realize the United States never had the freedom of the press. It's the illusion of freedom of the press. The oligarchs, the monopolies, what the hell they call it again? The robber barons, the Rockefellers, right? The Vanderbilts, blah, blah, blah. So these people, they rule this place, and they rule it because, along with the Vatican, by the way, and the Jesuits. And that's the reason why if you want to have a really good job at this place and go somewhere, make sure you have an education in a Jesuit school. So you hate Roman Catholics. I don't hate anybody. I'm just telling you how the world works. That's all I'm telling you. This is what happens. And see, you might have heard about the Knight of Malta, but then there's also the Knights of Columbus. And the Knights of Columbus are a very important group of people in the United States of America and North America. They're the equivalent of the Knights of Columbus. Overseas, over there in, Western Europe. What's going on over there in Ukraine has a lot strong connections between the Western and the Eastern version of the Roman Empire that we have today. It's about power and control. Who's going to, West or the East, who's going to control that region right there, right? They've been warring over that place so long. I feel so sorry for those people. And all in the name of Jesus, don't forget. It's all in the name of Jesus, man. And Jesus is perfect. You read the New Testament and learn about Titus. The dude that sacked Jerusalem. And man, it's like a mirror image. Anyways, that's another story. So anyways, it's important to actually think about this and learn about this kind of stuff because the foundation of our society is Judeo-Christianity. It is. It is not science. It is not your public school. It's not socialism. It's not democracy. It's it, we have we're still, and it's hopefully we can break it. We need to break it, but we still have religion is a huge uh, branch of the empire, the Roman Empire, modern day version of it. I mean, you say, the Roman Empire is, in 300s AD it disappeared. No, it didn't. It just transformed. It just morphed. That's all. That's all it did, and that's all it's ever done. And if you think the United States of America is not part of the Roman Empire, just go back and look at all the wars we did and how did we benefit in any of that. We, the people, how many of us benefited from those wars? Except for the oligarchs, except for the Roman Catholic Church, except for the Christian power base, except for all the elites. It's like they want it to be called the elite, you see. And this is extremely important stuff, but most people are never going to want to hear this stuff because, you know what? It means you are in a worse situation than you actually realize. I love it. I love this. I love this. I love this. Thank you, Rapper. I appreciate it so much. Where's your proof of what you're talking about? I love it. I like the show, but you are all over the place right now. You need to show what you're talking about. All right. Right. Notice how camera is synonymous with chimera. Very good. If you're still there, Cosmic Wildman, you're still there. Cameras were originally designed to capture chimeras. Spirits. This is what they're really about, right? They're interested in spirits. Spiritualism has always been a very important part of our culture. Whether it's, when I lived in England, which church you think was bigger? The Church of England, Christianity, or spiritualism? It was spiritualism. Every street corner they have is a spiritualist church. They don't have a Christian church. They have a spiritualist church. And that's what's going to happen to us at some point. Because people get sick and tired of Christianity and that's bullshit. And as people start realizing that billions upon billions upon billions of people's lives have been ruined over that cult and that black magic comes out of that book. And they'll say, no, I'm going to go back. You guys don't have the answers for me. I want to know did I seriously see my Aunt Margaret? Was that my mom really in my bed? I need to know. Who was talking during that seance, right? That medium. Who was that? What made that table move? You see? People are more interested in that by far. If you break them down and bring them to the very basics of what they're interested in, most people, only reason they're even in a church because they need friends. They need community. Now the crazies, like myself, who bought into drink the Kool-Aid so hard that I actually really believed in Jesus and really believed that there was kind of a second coming and all that. We're hardcore. I did hardcore, it was the first start out with nothing but the truth. And it's just, but anyways, and then it got it. But, I grew. I don't, it's fascinating because I left, the Mormon church when I was early and then in life, I had 2 months left of my mission. I actually met my ex-wife here, not my son's mother. She was fascinating. She's half Portuguese and half East Timorese, and she could speak 7 different languages. And she introduced me to a whole lot of people that I never would have met because she was involved with East Timor's Action Network, and it was supposed to be the first democracy of the new millennia, right? And the money, did they destroy the UN and Australia, United States? We really did destroy East Timor. Those people, they live in squalor now. They used to be more connected to that island. Now they live in absolute poverty. Congratulations. That's the new world order for it right there. Now, if you want to, I don't know which part, if he's still around, Raptor, which part do you need? Which evidence? Which topic? Or should I be like a computer and just spit out stuff? Should I be Google? And I just start spitting out stuff, and every reference and bibliography and everything else. Should I do that? Where's your evidence? My evidence is because I read books and I interviewed people and I actually researched. And so if you want to know what's going on in this world, you're going to have to do the same damn thing, or you're going to fall to every other damn trap that's out there. And they're endless. And most of the people are going to feed you a pile of bullshit, actually aren't even intending to. Some actually know what they're doing, but most people actually drink the Kool-Aid like me and are actually spewing out crap and don't ever challenge anything. Don't ever challenge their belief systems. You know what I mean? Don't ever really challenge to see if what they believe in has any knowledge or credibility to it, or any worth, any value. Or did I get myself in another trap? Because you see, the most important, valuable thing about you is your mind. And if they can control your mind, they got you. But now they're going all the way for it, right? Now it's going to be controlling the whole meat suit. So anyways, 2017, what happened was I was so discouraged about the Christians and about the truther movement. So I said, what would be the one thing to investigate that would be like the most embarrassing and the worst thing you possibly could do? The best way of giving the middle finger to the truther movement and the people, because one thing about the Christians back then too, I was having an issue with, is because they need to see the message. In the New Testament, it says over and over again, including starting with Jesus and then his disciples, and you can show you verse after verse. Problem, if you don't read, people do not read. They don't bother to read, and when they do, they have some pastor or a professor to read for you, and so you figuring the shit out for yourself, right? And so we do this all. We all do that. We skip whole portions of the book and whole important elements of whatever discipline it is, right? I did the same thing, and so I started challenging it. Or before then, like 2015, I mean, I went full bore challenging everything. And, and I try to talk to Christians about the fact that it says over and over again that Jesus is going to come back in his generation. And you guys are telling everybody the world's going to end, or these are the last days, and that Satan's running this place. But that goes against everything that Jesus said and what the Bible says. Could it possibly be that part of the problem are people who have good intentions? Once again, the road, what they say about roads and intentions. And so, hey, maybe I got myself in a trap, an intellectual vice. And I've allowed myself in the loose to go tighter around my thick skull, and, that thing they call brain, man, that organ thing that screws up everything. And so, I started talking about it, and man, I got heavy rejection from the Christians. And I realized we're not going to be able to talk honest even in there. And we're supposed to be following the way, the truth, and life, Jesus, the Savior, and all the answers, Jesus. And we can't even be honest and truthful even in our own belief system and with other people around you. I mean, I understood when it came to the vast majority of people, but we were the truthers. We were the Christian truthers. We were going full bore about it, you see. We're asking all the questions. We're challenging everything. We were at this point that we were like, every single Christian denomination and church is of the devil. Right? And then you finally realize, well, shit, we're serving the devil. I'm a Christian and I'm serving the devil. And you're like, oh, man, what are you talking about? I want to talk about Bigfoot. I keep telling you people that Bigfoot is a small part of the story, but it is part of the story. And when you can accept, in fact, and treat it as what it is, and stop treating it like a demigod, you're going to be able to see much clearer about what's going on. I'm sure Bigfoot would appreciate that too. Whatever's left, Sasquatch, whatever's left out there, Sasquatch. I think they'd appreciate it very much if you didn't treat them like demigods either. I was being sarcastic on that one. Who the hell knows what they want? So, anyways. So I like, what's one thing that's really going to piss off the truther movement and all the truthers on the internet and all the people that I met? Bigfoot. Everyone I've ever heard is laughed about Bigfoot. Everyone. It's like, I don't know if they're real or not. There might be some kind of hominid out there, just like everyone else. But that Patterson film, there's a lot of red flags about that Patterson film, and there's a reason why they dumped that on a plastic platter with some plastic forks and spoons on us, right? It just like spewed all over these theaters. Oh no, theaters are all about making money, right? And it's all about advertisement. It's all about getting you, catching you, and that the little snares to get you to be a good consumer, right? It's a lot more going on to the Hollywood in the movies. A lot more going on. There's a lot of hands involved. You need to learn about Laurel Canyon and all the movies that were made. And back to this Laurel Canyon thing again, and how in the Laurel Canyon they created like the Yardbirds and every other big band that was from the 60s, right? Crosby, Steele, and Nash and Young. Yeah, Neil Young, that's right. Neil Young's an Army brat, man. All these dudes were Army brats, and their daddies were connected with the military. And then when I hear stuff like Henry saying, yeah, my daddy was in intelligence for the military, really? And you're an Army brat, and you're hanging out and going to school in frickin' France? I mean, how's that happen? And then you end up frickin', claiming that you're frickin' working for the Wall Street, and then you're working for the Swiss government. I don't care how fucking smart you are. If you don't have the connections, you ain't going to be doing that. Then make sure of that. Maybe he didn't recognize it, but I've seen enough. I saw the new the straight edge punk scene be destroyed by Henry Rollins and Ian McKay and all the big shots. And guess what? They all came from DC, and they all infested Henry Rollins infested the LA movement. And we had a really cool movement where I was at, in the Great Lakes, Kalamazoo and Detroit and Toledo and Cleveland. We had a really cool move, and Columbus, we had a cool punk scene, and it was destroyed, man. I watched, when I was a young boy, there was at least a half a dozen. And it wasn't like it was in the 70s or the 60s, but at least we had half a dozen of venues that you go play and be a gig out, and hang out and on a weekend as a teenager. There's plenty of places for teenagers to go. You know what? I watched it all disappear. You guys, if you're younger than me, if you're like in your 30s and 40s, you have freaking no idea what you missed out. And the problem is we missed out as well, because there was a lot more freedom and a lot of more, this whole thing about giving people valves, places, avenues, places to go to express, one's independence, to try to be as authentic as possible, to be oneself, right? But they don't want that. They don't want any kind of individuality. They don't want any. They want you to conform in every freaking level. And if you think it's not happening in the Bigfoot community, you have no idea about how the world works. See, I don't get any money to be honest about this. I don't get any attention. In fact, I get censored, and that's it. I lose. You know what? I lose more people by talking about this stuff than I ever gain. I lose tons of people. But you know what? It's not really about that, because it's that one person who has ears to hear and has eyes to see and recognizes that we live in a giant rat cage and we're all fucked. And you know what? We really got to do something about it. And the only way it's going to be done at all, first we got to get ourselves right. We got to realize where we're at for real. Stop living in their fiction. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of it. And I hope I sound like a madman, but I know I'm 100% telling the truth, and I know 100% you can find out everything I said so far is true. You can find out. It's going to take some work, but you'll be able to find out that we live in some kind of soul trap matrix. It's possibly reincarnations involved with it. And when it comes to the Bigfoot community, it's totally won-on or been infested with military intel and the propaganda apparatuses that we have, right? I mean, they're social engineering the shit out of people. It's just so amazing. Because you know what? This is the type of conversation that we should be having instead of just, oh yeah, the endless bogus arguments to justify whether it's a flesh and blood animal. But no one ever shows one. No one's ever going to show a flesh and blood animal. Not in a million years. They'll say that they saw it. I mean, but they'll never. And the footprints. That's all they got. Some hair that they claim to be. All those years, still in DNA testing, and still on a wait, and still waiting. It just costs a shitload of money. Isn't that interesting? It costs for the average person a shitload of money to do any kind of DNA test when it comes to this stuff. Now, supposedly, the same token, for like $100, you can find out your genetic background. Maybe you're part Indian or something. Maybe you can, you know what I mean? You cash in on that, whatever, you know. But they if it comes to this Patterson shit, I mean, it just takes hundreds and thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars, and you know what I mean. And it's such a scam, and it's so classic. And I'm telling you, when I'm talking about weaponization of the sciences and anthropology and psychology, oh, it's so obvious what's going on in Bigfootery. And I know that only one or two people you're going to hear what I'm saying. And the rest of you will not be able to handle it. Because your identity is fucked up as that is, and it truly is in Bigfoot and not in yourself. Just like I was when my identity was in Jesus and not in myself, right? This is what cults do. And I can tell you right now, Bigfoot's not going to save you or anybody. I even got close to talking about my story, but then again, I don't want to talk about the story. I want to talk about this stuff. I want to start doing this thing because I think it's very important. And the important thing is listen to another madman who's quite brilliant. And this is... Meat Puppet. Rebellious Meat Puppet. And you're like, you get to listen to Rebellious Meat Bucket. Meat Bucket. I love it. Rebellious Meat Bucket. Looks like Buckethead, right? The guitar player, remember that? Anyways, he's got some things to tell you. Go in line with what I've been trying to say and talking about here, there, and everywhere, trying to plant a little bit of seeds there. I'm going to hit you over the head with a sledgehammer tonight. Just check it out. Let me get this set up first. I will talk about it. I mean, I've talked about the experience with Bigfoot for so long. It's like nobody cares anyways, right? Nobody wants to hear my story. For real. Here we go. Mark, set. Bingo.
You're still asleep.
You know, it's interesting that you can speculate and analyze and contemplate and consider and all that stuff and come up with, for instance, what I've come up with about the human engineering. What I have presented has been in a way that nobody else I've ever heard has presented it. Because I don't think too many people grind on this stuff, to be honest with you. And the thing is, it's like, you know, I've come up with some legitimate points, and I have some seriously fucking legitimate questions about why you would really engineer us this way. And I guess since we're beings capable of intelligence, the best thing that we can do is through induction and deduction arrive at the most rational, reasonable, possibly irrational, and unreasonable conclusion when you toss everything else away that's utterly impossible or lacks enough merit to be considered. You see, something, whatever that something is, some things won't really tell us anything. Figure out what you can if you can, and if you do, who cares? What are you going to do about it? For people who don't wake up and remain at, you know, just above waking consciousness or whatever, none of this stuff will matter to them. They won't have any frame of reference to understand why it's so significant. But something does not want us to know anything. It wants us to believe. Like, writ throughout the entirety of this thing, something wants us to believe. All man wants is for us to believe rather than know. And even though it's man's rendition of what quote-unquote God says, I mean, it's kind of a joke, but you've got to believe in your Jesus or get cast into the bowels of hell. It's all about belief for this shit. And it becomes clear that something doesn't want us to know. And only a select few will ever find it or figure it out. Some of them may do it because of their diligent work, and others may get lucky and stumble across it. And I don't think a whole lot of people are really going to be out there actually digging and trying to figure it out. So those few of us that are questioning what the fuck's really going on here, all the way down to the very engineering of the meat sacks that we are. See, I think it's a pretty unique thing to be presented with the concept that pain, suffering, death, and learning are the only four things. And when you really step away from that and look at what, if you were engineering a slave, you might set up as the foundation that you would build upon, the things that will be inescapable for your slaves so that you can control them. Pain, suffering, short life, so they'll die quick, and then you make sure that they're fearful of death, and then you need them to learn, so you make them able to learn. I just haven't been able to let go of those things being at the foundation of the human experience. No human ever escaped any of those four. And then over time, as I start linking things together, as this information rattles around in my brain, I started thinking to myself, 5 foolable senses, a mind that's born blank and programmable into a realm contained by, or controlled and run by fucking evil men and evil forces. And I started linking it all together, and I'm like, wait a minute. See, a lot of that reincarnation stuff, soul trap stuff, it seems like it could fit when you consider Lush Farm. It's a little harder to quantify, but it seems like it could fit. But it's still a little harder to quantify. This stuff about how we were built, designed, and engineered, a lot easier to quantify, a lot easier to point out. Because we're talking about engineering of the human being when you consider the components and subcomponents of us from the perspective of the non-physical. It starts to open up a whole different can of worms when you realize the profundity of what exists in the non-physical. And that the mind itself is non-physical, therefore can be manipulated, influenced, affected, fucked with, whatever words you'd say, by things in the non-physical realms. And without very specific knowledge, protecting that non-physical aspect of you, that it literally exists in the places and spaces, in the quote-unquote realm, if you will, where, for instance, demons exist, if, in fact, demons can attack your mind. And when you look at, for instance, one example is schizophrenics. They're dealing with an attack on their mind and their psyches and all that stuff. People who are literally demonically attacked, some possessed, some subjugated, as Father Rippinger says, some oppressed. And he specifically says that demons will go after your mind and pull the strings of your emotions. You know, I just start putting all this together and then start realizing, fuck, no senses for the non-physical, for the incorporeal. And through just grinding on that, I'm like, wait a minute. These are other things that are all sitting there at the base of me contemplating what is this supposed God. And I tell you, man, I hate to admit it, every single equation I find always brings me back to Lush Farm. Every single equation I find always brings me back to Hell Realm, one or the other, or sometimes both. And that's just fucking gut-wrenching. So for me, there are reasons why I have chosen to grind on this stuff. All of this stuff derived from, I would say, pain and suffering, and just being generally pissed at what the fuck I've gone through, and just the whole 9 yards, analyzing it to a point of almost psychosis, if you really wanted to put it that way, and then to try and figure some of this shit out. Yeah, it'll push you to the fucking brink, because when things don't make sense in a reality that you're in comparison to the beliefs that you may have, yeah, that's going to cause you some mental fucking strain. You know what I'm saying? And then, you can spend lots of time trying to figure all this out, taking in all this external information and getting a sense of all the various theories that are out there from the various places and spaces that these things will come from, like religion or spirituality or some guru or the people from the Tavistock Institute and the CIA and those types of people that put out like New Age. This shit comes from different places and spaces within, this place. So again, there's a really vested interest in you not knowing something, really wanting to obfuscate the truth in such a way that it will literally, for a lot of people, frustrate your fucking efforts to no end, because you weren't given that beacon within you to know, that foundation of knowledge or understanding to know, that at a genetic level or something. You see what I'm saying? We come in with no foundation. Therefore, we could be deceived in any fucking way. When you really, really get down to it, we're not born with that internal beacon that I can tell, and or meaning this is truth. And like some baseline that we never wavered from because it was just engineered into us, and that was the place in space where we knew what was true and correct. No, that wasn't given to us, and no foundation of whatever we would consider to be truth. And I'm not even sure what that would look like, but I'm just very much generalizing. In whatever way you could contextualize it, there's no foundation from which any of us can really know what's true when we're born blank and programmable, and then we're indoctrinated until God knows when, and then once we figure out what indoctrination is and realize that was done to us, Well, at that point, we have that awareness, sure, but how many people actually go back to their belief systems and begin to analyze and assess what's contained within there, and then proceed to do the work to better understand what's really going on versus what they believe, all that stuff. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work that'll bring you to the edge of your own belief systems. And when that fractures and shatters and you have to reform it, that's a lot of psychological work. That's a lot of mental, emotional work, because the version of reality that you once subscribed to is now provably fucking false, and you're left to figure out, and then you come to that realization that you're the one that's left to figure it the fuck out. And you're in a world of deception, and a world of inversion, and a world full of people who will spend their fucking time, mind power, brain power, energy figuring out how to fuck to deceive your ass, knowing that some of us are going to wake up and try and figure it out, and they're going to make sure that you're going to find yourself little pits you can do little circles in, going round and round chasing your fucking tail. And these crazy ideas of what could be happening here cover the gamut of aliens, inner earth beings, demons, interdimensional beings, fucking blah, 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 blah. But when you step away from all that, you start realizing resets, cullings, and then recognizing again the energy through looking at the engineering and recognizing how much energy we produce, especially when we're emotionally charged. It all, again, starts to point back to this concept of this loosh farm, of this harvest. Again, that's kind of soul crushing, because it's like, well, how did I wind up here? Why am I here? Where did I come from? And when do I get to go back? That kind of shit. Like, if you've ever taken in that little, well, it's not little, it's 4.5 hours. There's a documentary on what's called ISBEs, IS-BE. When they die, they try to leave and hit some fucking net of what do you call it? Energy. And they get shocked in a way that, like, if you had a patient on a table that you were giving electroshock to, I wouldn't actually call it a patient, I'd call it a fucking victim. Wrong word. Yeah, victim. Where they do, well, there's a version of that in the ISBE story that happens to the ISBEs, and that's why they come back wiped, because that's how it's just what they say. There's so many different versions of the veil of forgetting, how we get wiped, how the immortal spirits that we are don't have the spirit essence of us has existed since before the universe. You know what I'm saying? Since before time. I bet you if any of us actually knew what we were and how long we truly existed, if something actually gave us that truth, we've probably been around for in a spirit sense. But somewhere, somehow, that aspect of us doesn't have a mind or memory, I'm guessing, or it does, and that's why they shock the fucking hell out of us in whatever way they do that to the eternal spirits, so that they can somehow fucking wipe out their memory. It's really weird what electricity does, apparently, through multiple planes of existence. But anyway, I still wonder how I got here. How did all of us get here? I know our parents did the deed, but I'm talking our animating essence. And when you realize it's more like a prison planet, hell realm, loosh farm, and you realize that you're imprisoned in the body, and that the body is reduced down to 5% of conscious mind, therefore a substantial portion of what you are, you're not even aware of. So you're literally imprisoned in the body, reduced down to 5% of conscious mind. In comparison to the totality of what you are, they literally reduced your perception down to what you can perceive out of the eyes. And your limited 5 sensory perception, that is all perceived through that tiny little 5% of what we call conscious mind. See, there was something in the design of that made me scratch my head, and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't look all that loving and kind now, does it? No, that makes it so that you're programmable. The vast majority of this place it's like, yeah, you're programmable. And since they don't want you too perceptive and too awake and too aware and too intelligent, they reduce.
Yeah, this is the first 10 minutes of that. Man, that guy, he rolls. He got fire, man. I can see why nobody wants to be around him. So I see why he's at that stage where he's living in a shed. So, but you know what? Hey, a couple things. Raptor, you're absolutely wrong about what I said. I never said that. You don't listen very well, do you? I never said from one moment that the Patterson film is fake. Didn't say that. I said that I'm trying to get you to think about how it was manipulated and used as a form of mind control. It was given to us on a plastic platter, a plastic fork and spoon, a knife for that matter, for you to devour, for you to argue and debate all day long, whether it was a real one or not one. That's what I'm saying. As far as Sasquatch and Bigfoot goes, if you want to know the truth about it, then you have to get off your freaking ass and find out for yourself. Because they're not going to be handed to you on a silver platter or a plastic platter. Last comment. Please send it all the channels you know and you subscribe to, and watch what your channel will do. Say what? I don't know what you're gonna say. Please, the last comment. Please send it all to the channels. Oh, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. There's only like a couple of shows of channels I watch. I might have 100, 200 of them on, but I only watch a couple on a regular basis. Show my name. Oh, okay. Show your name. Okay. Is that? I mean, why? You do it. I'm not going to do your work. You do it. I'm not asking you to do my work. Anyways, we do live in the Soul Trap Matrix. We live in a big giant loose farm. And everything's been tampered with. And you've good luck you figuring out the truth of much of anything. That's why I keep trying to tell people who listen and who come to the show that you have to go do the work. You can't trust on me. You can't trust anybody in the Bigfoot community. You have to go find out for yourself what the hell's going on in those woods. And there's a good chance that your experience is going to be different than others because it's tailor-made, and it's also designed with the meddling hands of trickster spirits, if you will. I think about, Henry, he's talked about this thing about, I'm not knocking Henry as a person, because there's a lot of red flags, but this world's so fucked up that just might be someone that fucked up. That really had all those weird ass experiences, because, one of the things is I noticed with military brass, especially those with the children of the military intel, is that a lot of them, they end up getting positions they don't have any business having positions in. But because of connections and because they're useful, it's just like the Jesuits, and you go into, or priests, a Catholic priest, right? You go to the confessional to spill all the beans, and that way they know what you're up to and what they can use against you, your spouse, and all that kind of stuff, your family. Who's going to be some useful? Where are you going to be in that pecking order, right? In the pyramidal scheme, are you going to be something that's really going to be helpful to maintain the empire, or are you going to be a problem? So with Henry, the thing is, he's like this dude who has this pretty much privileged background. If you're the child of a military brat, as difficult as it may be, I mean, you're going to go to the best schools. You're going to be freaking indoctrinated in a way that you and I are not. You are going to end up going to, like, in France, and then you're going to end up being like, New Jersey's full of that intel stuff, by the way, just full of it. And then, all of a sudden, it just naturally, he's a smart guy, but you know what? It's not about smarts. It's who you know. And you're in the Wall Street, and the next thing you're working for what? Switzerland or Sweden or whatever it is. And then Swiss, I guess it's Swiss cheese, right? And I'm not saying anything's not true, but I am saying those red flag. And he's telling you, he's been pretty much been observed and been paid attention to by outside forces. And then he's telling you stuff like, and this is bad news for everybody. Anybody that loves Bigfoot, you're in bad news. You're in bad comments. Because you know what? That's what he's trying to tell you is, listen, he's saying that they're the ones in charge of this place. All right? If whether it's true or not, it doesn't really matter. Let's just think of it as logically, right? Because it's probably not very logical that Bigfoot's in charge either. But let's just say he is. It is. And they're like the manager species that's actually managing this place, and we are like the tenders. We are like the zookeepers, if you will. We are we're the grunts. And our job is to maintain this place, right? To manage this place, right? And it's amazing we're doing such a terrible job. And always, the buck stops where? Is it stuck with the peasants, the working class, or stuff with the managerial class? That would be the Sasquatch. So the reason why everything's fucking up is because Sasquatch. That's what he's saying. That's the logical deduction. If it's true, that this thing called Bigfoot, this hairy hominid, demi-god-like entity, this thing that can come in and out of dimensions and show up and then not be there, it's in charge of us, and therefore the reason why things are fucking up is because it is. That's what he's saying. Along with the the ETs and all the other imaginary friends. So there you go. So I think that you better think, when you hear this stuff, you gotta like think through it. It says, yeah, you go, wow, that's really interesting. I wonder if that's true. I mean, what's a lot, think a little deeper about what this guy's saying, what these other guys are saying. I mean, they're telling you that Bigfoot has a fleet of mechanical spaceships and is abducting, which that means they're kidnapping people and they're taking their semen and their eggs to make hybrids and blah 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 blah. And maybe it's all true. Who the hell fucking knows? Because there's no way to prove it any of it, right? It's just like the Patterson film, right? I mean, I like MK's analysis. To me, it's very convincing that it possibly was a sentient being. But then again, the argument to say that they didn't have costumes back then or that kind of technology. I mean, first of all, none of us are in that position to even make that statement. We're not even, who of us have done research on Hollywood and makeup artists and costume making and all that? How do we fucking know they can't do that freaking? They didn't find some big dude and work on it and all that. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm just saying if you're going to use the argument that they didn't have the technology, you better really know what you're talking about, because there's a good chance you do not know what you're talking about. You're just spewing out what somebody else spewed out beforehand. It just sounds real good and convenient. Now, I'm not saying that Patty in the Patterson film is not some hominid, something we call a Sasquatch. I'm not saying that it's not so. I'm just saying there's a lot of sinister, manipulative hands are involved with that freaking video. And just because someone is just like have a military background or is a police officer or an FBI agent, that doesn't mean they're good people. And that doesn't mean they're actually people to be trusted. So when you start hearing the appeal of authority spewing out, you better think twice about who you're listening to. You know it. I know you're used to it. I know we're all used to it, but you need to start critically thinking about stuff. If you really want to know the truth about things, you have to be aware of the fact of who's involved with this stuff. Because you don't know who's involved with this stuff, really. You think you do. You don't know these people until you spend time with them or spend time with people like them, and you start hearing the coded language. And it's always the same. With that view that Sasquatch is at the top of the hierarchy of existence, it is parallel to Sasquatch actually being Anunnaki. And we are talking about the same thing, just semantics. Could be, but here's the real issue is not that. The real issue is whoever's in charge of this place, they're shitheads. Whether human beings or an Anunnaki or freaking Bigfoot. And they don't give a crap about you and I. They clearly don't. All you have to do is look around. Okay, let's talk about something. If it hasn't talked about it, we'll talk about. Last century, they tell you there was 250,000 people, 250 million people that were unalived or killed from war, right? They don't talk about, okay, let's just look in to this year, the past year, the possible census. Obviously the numbers and number crunching, you never know how accurate the numbers are. But across the board, last year from South America to North America, everywhere in place, we had pretty close to, believe it or not, this is going to be hard to stomach, but, about 100,000 people unalive, murdered, right? That's the numbers they give us. Knowing that they lie about shit, it could be double that. That's just in the Americas. Then you got to think about Africa and their numbers. And then in Asia, in Australia, and in Eurasia. And then you start to say, well, maybe so like maybe about 250,000 people were murdered. And that's not including more people. That's not including the others. So they're not even talking about what's going on and over there, that place that starts with a U, or what's going on at that other place that starts with an I. That's just, and they're also not talking about the people who were the second leading cause of being unalive or death is what? It starts with an H, and those people that wear those white coats. My son and his mother, she's entrenched in that freaking system. So how many are there? So now we're like even much more than that. So you start adding all things up between industry, between I can't say the word, but the people in white coats and what they do, you start adding it all up about the banking. How many people who through we didn't even talk about suicide. A lot of people die every year, right? And a lot of people die from horrendous, terrible, unnecessary deaths. Sorry, dude, I don't know who you like to watch. So, no. Well, I'm just shared you one. So, sorry, dude, we watch one. Nikki, she has no proof of anything. It's all about the money. Okay, well, if it is about the money, I'm not surprised. I mean, the fact matters when it comes to the Bigfoot community. None of us have anything to prove to give to you. I can show you. I can encourage you. I can show you how you might be able to start filming the things I'm filming in your area if you put the time and energy into it. And it might just happen for you. That's the only thing I can do. As far as about Bigfoot, hey, my encounter with Bigfoot doesn't go on with anything that the people in the Bigfoot community are talking about. And I know it's real. I know that Crow Indian Mesman know it's real. I know that my neighbor upstairs saw something. I know that, on and on and go. My people have had, but shared bits and pieces of my encounters. But how do I prove it? I did 90% of everything I did as far as research went on my own. And I didn't make the videos like everyone else because I realized real fast that was going to get in the way of me doing the research and finding out if this stuff is true or not. Have you noticed that everyone that is constantly putting out these videos of them marching around the woods, and some are my friends, and I'm not knocking them, but they don't have that great of a success rate as far as interacting with others in those woods. They're too busy. You're not connected. You're too busy staring at the camera, staring at the phone, trying to make people happy. You're busy about, worrying about tripping over that damn log and not knowing, what, when you're alone, your senses, that's what you need. You need to be fully alert. And if you can't be fully alert if you're running around with the phone in your hand or talking to people or even being with other people, because we distract each other. And that's the brutal reality of those things. So, that's why I started doing that stuff. Then also because my health started to wane because of the multiple sclerosis. So slowly, and this probably will be the last year that I'll do any type of field research of any kind. But I don't need anything from anybody anymore because I already did the work. See, I really did the work. I mean, I don't give a fuck if anybody else believes me. I'm going to keep on talking about it, but I don't give a crap if you believe me. Because, that's not what I want you to do. I want you to hear what I'm saying and try it for yourself. Find out for yourself what's up there. Because if you actually did that kind of stuff, then maybe you could help me out and you could help other people out. How? Because you would have your data points. You would have your information to add to the collection of information. And that if you're being legit and you're an honest and integral person, you're not just a person who likes making up stories and hoaxes. Because, by the way, I've seen a lot of that too. In fact, I've had hoaxers. Rick Grimarak is real famous with the alleged gargoyle in his backyard, right? Where he calls on his pastor to pray in tongues for him as there's this white Bigfoot-looking gargoyle in his backyard. Yeah, as he's filming through the screen, he faked all that. I know that. He came and drove really 2 hours, 2 freaking hours from Mansfield, Ohio, to come hang out with me, to really sit in the same room right now and lie his ass off to me. And he didn't have a problem with it. And you know the reason this is because he actually enjoys pulling hoaxes on people. There's a lot of people that are really screwed up, dudes. People, very, very screwed up. Very screwed up. And they'll do all sorts of things, not only for money, but just for the kicks of pulling one over you. A sense of power. Plus, this whole thing, what he was talking about, what Meat Puppet was talking about, is that you know, there's people. You think that these are not they're not interdimensional beings around that aren't influencing you, us all. And here's the funny thing: I noticed when I was actively involved with Christianity that things actually didn't get better; they got worse. And although I didn't recognize it at the time, it's through retrospect, it's through time. To look back on things, to have a couple conversations with people to help me click. Even though they didn't necessarily bring any of that up, it helped me. Something to snap and go, oh, the click and go, hey, there it is. Now I see why us having all these weird experiences of poltergeist activities, because this thing called Christianity is black magic. Okay, your videos here on your channel, what have you captured? Go fucking look at the videos. Come back when you have some answers, questions that actually mean something. Rapture, you're starting to make yourself look really stupid at this point, man. Seriously. You need to like work on that. Tighten it up, bud. Tighten it up. Tighten it up. Go do the homework. Tighten it up. Make sure you know what the hell you're talking about. Tighten it up. So yeah, we live in this soul trap matrix. It appears, and what definitely is true, there's no justice in this place. When you look at 99% of let's put it 190%, the vast majority of people suffer greatly, terribly, for unnecessary reasons. People try to tell you in this world, this realm that we live in, that it's it's all about learning and evolving and becoming a better person. It's horseshit. And this whole thing about past memories and past, and a lot of that is especially it's all bogus. It's power of suggestion that's running through it. It's 2023, so there's actually fucking no reason that Superman, demigod, Sasquatch can't show up and say, hey, listen, we're the ones in charge. And okay, the whole world's going to go chaos. Or you show it to me, or show it to you, or show it to the rest of us. There's no reason for us not to see the fleet of Sasquatches, right? You know what I mean? They got a fleet of and UFOs, right? There's no reason for them to hide. They got the superior technology. We got nothing. The military does, but apparently, if the military is working side by side with Sasquatch, then do you know what? They can't do shit anyways. They're just saying they can't do shit. But yeah, it's just pretty much what it is. So, what is going on here? I think it's pretty important questions. I'm not trying to just knock the man. I'm not trying to knock anybody, but I just, ask the questions. Look through the storyline. Look at the contradictions. Right? Heck, if I have some contradictions, instead of, showing half-assed attempts like you, Raptor, go find out about my videos and tell me what you think and why. Show me where I'm wrong. That's all you have to do. But you won't do that. You'll just come here and harass me. But that's okay, because that helps with my numbers, right? And what are my numbers all about? My numbers about reaching people so they might know the truth. And the weird thing is, Raptor, you might just know the truth too. and then you can let go of whatever's moving you. Let's do part 2 now.
Reduce that mind space down to a paltry 5%. The Vedics believe it's 10%, but even still, it's still 1/10 of the total capacity. And then everything about this reality for, I guess, Islam, Christianity, possibly, I guess even Judaism, and I don't know how many other religions out there subscribe to this fucking condemnation, hellfire, you know, you're going to go to hell if you're a sinner, blah, 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 all that fucking condemnation, dirty fucking sinner bullshit. I started stacking all this stuff up, looking at it on the wall in some cases, and I'm like, God damn, that's an awful lot of shit that connects together in ways that I never realized before. And it paints a picture that's not all that goddamn pleasant. And I'm not looking at it from a bias. I'm just kind of throwing on the wall what's in my mind about what's there, what I see, what I've experienced, what the wisdom of years has shown me, taught me, what my spiritual journeys have taught me. Blah, 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 just dumping it all out, you know, and then reducing it down. And I'm like, fuck. Loosh Farm, Hell Realm, Prison Planet, a life sentence, technically, because you're born in to have life. So you live an entire life and you die. So it's literally being born here is, in fact, a death sentence. And when you realize that pain, suffering are the two things that are used for compliance, control, and then fear, hence they gave you the endocrine system to dose you with the chemicals so that you can feel the fear. And then, like, nobody hears from God. I think most people that say they do are in some state of, I don't know, delusion, possibly spiritually bypassing, possibly their egos are so inflated they want people to believe how spiritual they are. I really don't think that there's any real evidence for this shit at all. I keep hyperanalyzing in the world and looking for it, looking around as I'm out in the world, looking around as I'm on the internet, looking around. I'm like, huh, there's an awful lot of the things you would expect to see that you don't see. And in the times that we're in today, these are the times you would expect to start seeing that. But then again, I guess we didn't see it during the early 1900s, during the Bolshevik Revolution. There was, 90 million Russians killed there, 80 million, depending on your statistics, plus then 10 million in the Holodomor. And then Mao wiped out 60, 70 million. So we're talking absolute fucking meat grinders for those two countries and their collective populations as communism set in both Russia and China. And that was a mass genocide. We're talking 250 million people, and that's not even the wars in the 20th century. That's just the fucking genocide when you combine like Pol Pot and a handful of other fucking tyrants in the 20th century that were genocidal assholes. The statistics that I heard are somewhere in the neighborhood of about 250 million people. You think that wouldn't attract the attention of what people call God, a divine, benevolent creator God that was like protecting its beloved creation? No, these things did not bring any of that, and or its representees. I just keep joking around with that. Any representatives that you would consider to help in any way balance the scale. So I start weighing all this shit out. And I talk about it a lot because I really want to keep putting it on the table in front of people to consider. Please, because other people have minds too, right? And I'm saying, prove me wrong. Prove this shit wrong, not me. Prove this stuff wrong. It's not really about me at all. It's not about me. I'm just one of those people that I got to a point where I started to realize that I was deceived so goddamn much in this reality. It's like, okay, so how deep do you want to go knowing the fucking truth, up to and including questioning God and all that other shit? When you start looking at the design and the reality that we were put in, look at the biblical references of what the fucking psychopathic God is in the Old Testament, and just on and on and on and on. And I'm like, where's the part in our history where there was a benevolent, quote-unquote, God, there were benevolent gods, where humans were in harmony and kumbaya or whatever, unless it was in the garden when we were naked and ignorant, like they wanted us, slave-like, and completely unaware as to our servitude and all that other shit. Our blatant fucking ignorance. I mean, our profound ignorance. Naked and so ignorant, we didn't even know right from wrong, good from evil. So we just took everything they did to us when we were in the garden. And then one day, whether a lady ate an apple and gave it to her husband, or they had the orgasm and that cracked the consciousness, or a Kundalini experience spontaneously happened, and whatever it was, somehow, these humans in the garden, they became conscious. Something happened, and that pissed that thing off clearly, and the evidence is the stories were told about the being cast out and the cursing of the humans. I mean, that's biblical. I mean, fucking, even the Jews will tell you that one. Christians will tell you that one. I'm not sure about the Muslims, but I think they might have a similar story, or the same story. So this motherfucker cursed the entirety of the species. And when you start thinking on what those curses were, and the impact that they've had, hey, we have been slaves when you start looking at our history. That's another thing. All the history that shows slavery, and man shall work by the sweat of his brow for all of his days. I mean, clearly we have to work to build a civilization, but what we've got going on here is a form of slavery that's hard to identify when you're born into it and you don't realize it. The debt slavery, the hamster wheel. So we got man working by the sweat of his brow. Now they got the woman out there too. And after giving life to children, they take the woman out of the home and then let the state indoctrinate the child's mind. And see, since this reality is so interactive from the incorporeal realms, and there's so much evidence of the goddamn devil, quote unquote, the evil forces, and then the evil men that are working for them, I still sit stunned as to why we don't see any evidence of the equal and opposite in this dualistic reality, right? If it's a dualistic reality, isn't that what we're told? It's a dualistic reality. Well, we clearly see the evil. We clearly, well, to the degree that you've educated yourself to these things, understand why they do what they do with regards to children and bloodletting and sacrificing of kids and all that stuff. They've done this shit all the way back to the days of Babylon when they were throwing babies in the fucking fires to their bull god, Baal, Moloch. So there's some historical identifiers as to what they're sacrificing to, and then when you look at the power they have today, well, it seems like with all those goddamn sacrifices they've been making, well, they've been given favor by that demonic realm that has empowered them in ways that have allowed them to basically take over the fucking world. I mean, it's right in front of the faces of those who have the eyes to see. And then to think that our lives, the crash test dummy, soul has an agenda of learning and you're not given the fucking table of contents. It's not an interactive thing with soul. It's not an interactive thing with quote unquote God. It's not an interactive thing with anything in the incorporeal that can completely fuck with your mind and all of that other stuff. To the degree that you know and understand that to absolutely be true. The whole goddamn game is stacked against us in ways that most humans just do not want to fucking consider, be shown, be told, or come to realize, because everything will start breaking down. You get the normie to see all this and align with it, even if briefly, you're going to irreparably damage them. Because I think the psychological impact of going from normie to seeing this kind of stuff and understanding it at a deeper level is just going to literally break you. Because this type of shit so defies all of the fucking things that we think, believe, and, think because of what we believe, because of what's been put into our fucking heads. I mean it. I really, really fucking mean it, as serious as a heart attack. The mind is the prize in this reality. Well, it's one of the bigger ones. Your sexuality is another one. But the mind is the major fucking prize right there. And when you really look at the way they go after the subconscious mind, that's quite revealing in and of itself. When you understand that what people call the Illuminati, those bloodlines and, the whole occult scene at that level, there's a lot of symbolism in what they do. There's a lot of symbols in the big corporations. There's a lot of symbols in occultism and shit like that. And the reason for that is that it impresses upon the subconscious mind a little easier, because the conscious filters generally don't pick up a lot of stuff relevant to those symbols. Sigils, the same way. They understand real well how to slip things through your conscious filters. And you have to be really, really acutely aware and mentally aware and acutely focused on what you're taking in that they produce, if you do, for them to ensure they don't get something slipped in through your fucking filters. It's crazy when you really start to understand the subconscious mind cannot actually determine what's false from what's not false, true from false, real from unreal, fucking delusion from reality. The subconscious mind cannot determine that. And when you look at that equation, it's like, wait a minute. In these meat sacks, trapped in these meat sacks, we were reduced down to 5%. And that 5% doesn't even perceive the subconscious mind, let alone know where the door to it is, let alone have any blueprints or directions as to what it is we might do to get into the subconscious mind to take control of it in the event that something attacks it and puts false information in there, knowing that that's going to make the basis of the foundation of your perception and beliefs and shit. The subconscious mind. Why would you engineer us so that we don't have access to that place within us where all the baggage goes that we would actually need to be able to get access to do work on it, to rid ourselves from it when we became conscious and aware enough to do it? The unconscious mind, where like your heartbeat and your blood pressure and your breathing and your all that stuff, that shit, I understand why that would be firewalled the fuck off, but our subconscious mind, for fuck's sake, that's fucked up. I mean, think about what's in there. Your traumas. And until you become acutely aware of how this shit works and then go and do the fucking work, you're never even going to fucking know that. And this shit is going to stay repressed within the fucking subconscious. And then that's just the baggage that you carry the fuck around. Because we weren't actually engineered in a way to truly know that by default. And think about it. Where love, a lot of times, in this reality, shifting gears just a little bit, is a lot of times felt outside of like parents and shit, where you're lucky enough to actually get decent parents and shit, is the relationship between man and woman. The relationship between husband and wife. And when the quote-unquote God, the head sorcerer, whatever, the head demon, curses humans with enmity between man and woman, well, that's just another fucking spell, a black magic curse, ensuring pain and suffering between man and woman in the pursuit of the connection of each other that we were actually engineered and genetically fucking wired and chemically set up for. I mean, if that doesn't show you a guy that wanted to, or a god, quote-unquote, whatever this fucking thing was, that wanted to stick two fingers in your eyes, like the Three Stooges, Moe and Curly, but hardcore, and a fucking ram a fucking spiked bat up your ass out of spiteful, psychopathic rage and hatred because Now we knew what it was doing to us. You see what I'm saying? It would make them pretty pissed off now, because now their fucking slaves aren't as easy to get to work for them anymore, because, well, they know what you're doing to them. So when I started realizing what happens to children, how that's blanketed upon us generation by generation, and then when I started to realize how they go after us in each of the 3 stages of human development, I started to realize, wow, this is an onslaught. This is not a spiritual war. This is a fucking asymmetric assault. Because like I said, a war has 2 parties fighting back and forth. You know, that we don't see that. We don't see any of that at all. In fact, Father Rippinger gives us tales that, in fact, God's using these demons as his tools. So do you think that God's going to protect you from the little demons? When in fact it's such a control freak, megalomaniacal fucking asshole that it'll actually allow or use demons to drive you to your fucking knees by raping your fucking life to give you no other alternative but to draw your focus to him. I'm just like, come on, man. Like, the more I look, the more I question, the more I analyze, the more I contemplate, the more I just do the things that are within me, just like all the rest of you could do. And the reason none of you fucking do it, I would argue, is probably because you haven't been driven to the levels of fucking suffering that fucking got you to the point where you were so pissed and, well, what the fuck is all this shit for? Because, you know, I'd gone through a life of hell in and of itself, and I was still a relatively normal guy, happy, fucking decent personality, blah, 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 blah. It took this, after I came back from Peru, to really piss me off. The way they, whatever the fuck they are, use that goddamn sewer-dwelling, belly-crawling fucking Jezebel fucking filth, the way they use that bitch, that was some low-down and dirty motherfucking shit. Like the kind of thing that you'd have to reach down to get that idea. You'd have to reach down in all the way up to your armpit to the bottom of the sewer, to the bottom of the fucking cesspool, to pull that little nugget of an idea out and then do it. That's where that came from. You put me through that based off of why I walked into the Amazon and what I was looking for and asking for and thought, whoa, oh no. Then I start asking questions that go into the realm of a whole, because I was so fucking pissed off. I was like putting my foot through every goddamn taboo, the God thing, the devil thing, the Lucifer thing, the occult thing, the fucking, all of it. I was just like, fuck this. What is this? What is this place? I don't care. Don't care if I offend him. Don't care. Don't fucking care. I want to know. And, well, I'm not in that darkness anymore. There's still a part of me, I guess you could say, that is quite fucking pissed, bitter, resentful, and even hateful, spiteful, and all that other shit when it comes to this thing up there, or whatever it was, that did this to me and my fucking life. And there's no way you're going to convince me, trying to mind fuck me into thinking that, oh, well, because you gained some wisdom and some knowledge and you learned some shit, that's what it was for. Your God did that to teach you. Motherfucker, you better hope. Like, I mean, that kind of shit. Whoa. Because what I got versus what I paid, way out of balance. Just like every other fucking thing in this reality is out of balance. The whole fucking goddamn reality is just out of balance, devoid. I mean, technically the phrase God-forsaken, that's a kind of a real thing here. This is a place that has been forsaken, and we, as a species, collectively, we're clearly forsaken by what people call and consider to be God, or it wouldn't have sat around while 250 million people were slaughtered in the 20th century. You know, we're only 24 years outside of the 20th century. You know, many of us that are alive today live through or know it. We're close enough to that history that we were taught, so we fucking know what went on. So all this stuff that people think and believe about this benevolent spirit in the fucking sky, or whatever context they have for it, it literally sat around in its easy chair while 250 million people were slaughtered by, well, the seeds of Satan himself, so to speak. Because those are the people that were responsible for Bolshevism and fucking communism. So when I use words like limp dick, referring to whatever this God is, Team Lightside, I'm sorry, there's literally reasons after looking back at history and understanding all of this that I've used that. And maybe it's not. Maybe it just literally, it hates us so much, it cursed us the way it did, and then left us to be devoured by the fucking evil that it knew was fucking here when it put us in this motherfucking reality to begin with. I mean, it all points to psychopathic, megalomaniacal, fucking red-faced, psychopath, rageful anger. How dare you, fuck you, I'll curse you, because now you're going to be, now you have the ability to be more than I ever intended you to be. You know, now that causes a whole new level of problems for me and mine, because now we've got to manage you and do a whole lot of different shit, or just wipe you all out. Honestly, I think it would have been better if they just wiped us all the fuck out, because when you really understand what's going on, I don't think any of us would have wanted to sign up for this kind of fucking bullshit. And it's been the same goddamn story, rinse and repeat, cycle after cycle, constant cycles of war and famine and pestilence and conquering and conquest and lots of killing each other and fighting over, like, really? Like, we're an intelligent species. You'd think we would have learned these lessons thousands of years ago about the cost and consequences of war and have evolved past that to the point where we're not warring amongst ourselves on our own goddamn planet, plane of existence, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But no, we're running around like a bunch of dumb, angry monkeys that are being played by these tiny hats, and they're laughing all the way to the bank and getting us to kill each other and fight their fucking wars. But God loves you. and Jesus is coming to save you, and Allah's got 72 versions for you. And seeing being reduced to what I've been reduced to since the lockdowns happened that took out the small to medium businesses, that wiped out the fucking pool of businesses that I was providing service for with my small business, I've felt the fucking impact of a level of fuckery that just, whoa, governments went rogue in a way that nobody would have ever suspected by going after the small to medium businesses, wouldn't you say? I mean, clearly they were rogue. The lockdowns in and of themselves were bad enough. But when you go after the small to medium businesses that comprise, at least in America, 60% of each state's fucking local economy, which is very, very, very important. Yeah, when you do that collectively across all fucking 50 states, the way that happened, that's a new level of shit that I don't think anybody planned for. So, yeah, it's been a very interesting ride for me. But because of the stress of all of this, the strain, the fucking resentment, the hatred, I mean, I'm going to own it. I mean, I'm a human being. These feelings are fucking valid. You got to work through them, go through them, whatever, in order to fucking, deal with them and work through your shit, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say I don't feel these things, because I would be a fucking inauthentic liar. In fact, I actually admit that I feel this shit quite frequently by telling people how bad I would like to see the heads of Yahweh and Jehovah and Lucifer and Satan on a fucking wall. It pretty much states my case right there. And then there's something inside me that says that's what they want, is for you to, be in hate and be in all that fucked up energy, and then you won't get out of here, you'll stay trapped in here, you want to, or whatever it is, you want to send, whatever. So that feeds the whole fucking agenda to keep you trapped here by, like, letting you see it all. Now you're going to hate them because, well, look at what they're doing to you, and they're unapologetic for it. They don't give a fuck that you see it and don't like it. And when you die, if you don't know the right thing, they're going to do it to you again. What do you think about those apples, motherfucker? Like, yeah, it's like that. That's what I think is going on here. And through all of that, for instance, for me, that's just one of many that have gone through their own hells, all the pain, all the suffering, all the fucking places and spaces where I was in my pity pot and why me, all the places where I was angry at God and like I want to kill God, where all the places where you're just like, I never actually, quote unquote, cried out, wouldn't do it, just wouldn't do it. I'm like, yeah, I'm here, I'm conscious, and I'm awake, never nothing. And if you have to ask amidst all of this, well, it reveals more about your psychopathic, megalomaniacal fucking God, and it will not answer to us. I mean, that's another thing. When you really sit there and think about all of the things that can and do happen to us in the non-physical, and nothing that does what it does to us suffers any consequences for what it does. I mean, that's another one. Just sit with that. There's no consequences that they will ever fucking suffer that we will ever know about. And since they did it to us, we should know about it. We should be able, nothing. And then when you realize you weren't given the senses to perceive this shit, well, it just takes it up another notch of what the true intentions were for the little meat sack, the little man animals. So like I said, when you reduce me down to this is the kind of shit my mind fucking grinds on. I can't stop, because it's like, to be where I'm at, considering what I did and what I sacrificed and what I put forth and all that stuff, all I'm suggesting is you would never expect this. You would never expect this. And had the lockdowns not taken place, I'd probably still be in California, fucking doing my thing, doing my videos, because, all of that shit came out of me, the know thyself stuff, the human engineering, human design, before the lockdowns even fucking started, So I would have had my business and fucking, be doing these videos in a vastly different way, because I would have my own home and I would have, all my shit organized, and I'd have time and, all that stuff I had when I had a normal fucking life that was basically stolen from me by the lockdowns. There was a lot of impact from those lockdowns economically. A lot of people got devastated by that shit. The same way people got devastated by the fucking mortgage meltdown of 2008. It was just a different level when you go after the small to medium businesses. You would never expect that. You would never expect. That's like a government shooting its own economy right in its own foot with 2 double-barrel shotguns, both doubles, loaded with double-aught buck, and then you pull both triggers of both, at your own fucking feet. That's effectively what it was. And then, see what it was, here's what it is, for people who don't actually know. That was their attempt to basically take out the little guy so they could make him dependent upon the state like they do in communist countries. And when you take them out economically by going after the small to medium businesses, you're trying to do a very specific type of very insidious harm to the entirety of the population, to the entirety of the population, because you're going after them economically, which is the very power that they have in this fucking life. And a lot of people lost their family through the lockdowns and the whole thing because, well, those people were awake and others weren't. There's a lot of that went on. But for me, I had a combination of that on top of the fact that before the lockdowns, I had 2 narcissistic parents. When the chips are down, narcissistic parents are not going to be there for their kids in 95 out of 100 fucking circumstances. And this was a situation where the world was melting down with, this global fucking deception. And it was so bad. I knew it was so bad. I literally was trying to get through to my own goddamn family, because we shared blood, because my brothers have fucking multiple kids, and it's like, don't do this. Well, they didn't listen to me. Now they fucking all hate me. My father had his head fucking cut open, and like his narcissistic fucking childlike ass has just turned me into the worst piece of shit that I could have ever been in his own fucking head. Then triangulates my other brothers, and just the whole fucking thing imploded on itself. I was just like, you got to be kidding me. No good deed goes unpunished. And they, to this day, still will not and cannot and will refuse to properly understand or contextualize the reasons why I went out of my way to ensure that they didn't stick something in their body that was going to cause them problems later. And amidst all that's come out in the last couple of years,
where am I? I disappeared. Oh, there I am. Almost there. So Raptor really is trolling me. Thank good. Everyone's gone. Good. So I'm not really interested in just Bigfoot. Raptor. Sorry to disappoint you. Bigfoot, like I keep on telling people, is just part of the story. It's not the whole story. Bigfoot only represents a very small. If you want to stay stuck in your fantasy world, then do it. By the way, that's it's called his channel is called Rebellious, the Rebellious Meat Puppet. Certainly you can spell that, right? Or do I have to show you that? Maybe I show you that. Rebellious Meat Puppet. He's pretty intense, very intense. But you know what? I share his pretty much most of his feelings. The other thing I have one thing about, and I know that he doesn't like that. I understand where he's at in the space where he's at right now. But I do believe that anger is a contribution to the loose production, and it's probably a good idea to try to manage that as much as possible. It's rightfully so that he's angry. Anybody that has any 2 cents, any brain cells, should be very pissed off about this whole world. Anybody who has any brain cells when it comes to, say, the Bigfoot world should be very pissed off of how they've played us terribly. But you know what? Once you come to terms with what's really going on, then hey, it's okay. You know where you're at, right? Once you know your issues, you can now do something about it, right? If you so choose. And I think Raptor, I think he's batshit crazy. I think you are batshit crazy. The things that you post, I can always say you're batshit crazy. But I appreciate you being here and your craziness. So anyways, yeah, so this is what Rebellious Meat Puppet. I remember when I first found him, I think he had like 16 subs, and people like me and his own work and others have helped him now in the past 2-3 months get to almost 400 subs. So I think you should subscribe to him. It's going to be a tough pill to swallow. It's going to be very offensive. It really is going to be offensive. You've probably heard it already, the stuff that's offensive. But so be it. It's best to grow up and develop some real thick skin than it is to live in La La Land. So, you know, this once again, it's Mr. or Mrs. Raptor Crazy. You know, hey, listen, I never hid who I am. All that person has to do is go look at the list of videos that I've done. I told you about who I am. I told you they took down my channel back in January the 6th, 2021, because I spent those 2 years warning you about the global agenda. I told you, Bigfoot is an important part of my life. The spirits and the trees, spirits and all that part of my life, but it's not my life. And if it is your life, if this stuff has become your life, you are going to be greatly disappointed down the road. You're going to get your ass burnt is what's going to happen. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the scripted stuff, the ghost stuff, the paranormal stuff. I'm not saying not to learn about it, not to pay attention, not to develop some understanding of it. What I am saying is, if that's all you're focusing on, you're going to get your ass burnt. By them and by the people around you, because you really don't know anything. The problem is you're not going to learn shit in the Bigfoot community. That's what I discovered. You're going to go down one rabbit hole after another, one story after another, and you're never going to know the truth about what's really going on. You're going to think you're knowledgeable about stuff, but you don't know crap. That's the problem. And it's a universal thing. So when I say you, and there's 3 fingers pointing at me. And so then you have to come to terms with things. You have to say, okay, I'm going to have to do my own field research. I'm going to have to figure out this stuff for myself. And then you're going to have this choice. And a lot of you guys who are content creators, are those numbers on YouTube more important than the truth, or on TikTok, or on Instagram, or on Rumble, or all the other damn black BitChute? Are those numbers really that important? You gotta understand that a lot of it's just padded. A lot of it's just people need jerk reaction, like something you did, and next thing they sub to you, and you know you end up you have thousands of people, but you're only getting 1 or 2% views, anyways. So what does those numbers mean? They don't mean shit. And that's the reality of things. And so, you know, I'm not looking for a following. I'm not looking for people to say, oh my gosh, I finally found somebody that But, you know, the thing is, I'm still going to tell you the truth how I see things. And I strongly believe that we live in a soul trap matrix. We live in a loosh farm in which the only reason why you're here is not to learn, but to emit as much loosh as possible. This is the thing about with Meat Puppet here. It's his anger, although it's very entertaining and sometimes gets the point across, and he's very passionate about stuff, that's emitting a type of loosh. And so we have to learn how to maintain ourselves as some of the ancient Eastern yogis and gurus and wise men said, you know what I mean? Not only to know thyself, but to be able to, that means to be able to control thyself, you know, and the loose production. Things are going to come your way. Love. Number one source of loose there is love. What does love do? It causes us to do all sorts of things. Become blind, for one thing, right? We fall in love with somebody, and they're the most perfect thing there ever was, right? And they say if you're like one of those people like myself, I mean, I don't get in a relationship with a woman unless I really, 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 really like her. You know what I mean? And that's not because there's anything special about me. It's how I'm wired. Plus, you know, it's just not going to use somebody just to use somebody. Just so, I mean, I've had that experience before. I've done it in the past. I think in my first marriage with Tercia Maria Godina Walsh Adams, you know, I think that we probably were, we fell in love, but then the 12 years we stayed together was, we were using each other is what we're doing, right? So, and I think that's wrong. You should really know what you want, know who you want to be with, who you are. That you owe to, if you're a guy, you owe to the gal, and if you're a gal, you owe to the guy, or whatever. If you're, you know, a guy into guys, make sure you know who the hell you are, and vice versa. If you're a lesbian, you know, I think it's important to know thyself. And when you understand that where you're at, right, you realize that the Cathars and the Gnostics were correct with this place that we live in. We're close to it, at least. And there's a reason why they were taken out so violently by Rome and the Catholic and the Christian Church. And that's because, you know, and by the way, that's also, you'll find cultures here in America as well that has very similar beliefs. That we don't belong here. We come from another place, you know, star, happy hunting grounds. We don't belong here. We don't belong here. And I think instinctively, most of us know that. I mean, if you really think about your life, compare it to, all you have to do is spend some time. You know, there's probably a squirrel in your yard, a sparrow. I mean, you know, the robins showed up the other day, so and the tree frogs are chirping again, and it's a little early, but you know what the hell, it's 72 degrees today, so thank goodness for global warming, huh? And so, not that I believe in it, but it's nice to have some warming. You know what I mean? I don't like winters unless you're in good health and you're like skiing or really enjoying the outdoors. It sucks. It's just more. It's just something else to freaking have to deal with. So, anyways, and plus, I don't like the cold. Which is another thing about this shitty creation. This is opposed to dualistic. Well, it is in a way, and it isn't. But regardless, because there's night and day, there's darkness and light. So there's going to be some good and there's some bad. The problem is, the more and more you start reaching this stuff and comparing notes in your own personal life, you realize that the bad outweighs the good. It really does. When you think about all the things you went through, and the billions upon billions of people right now, well, it's 8 billion people, and the vast majority of them, we're talking billions upon billions of people, are suffering all sorts of terrible ailments, diseases, and poverty, and broken relationships. People are beating each other, and there's some violence about is happening right now, and some child's being, violated, and look at all the children in the hospitals, and that's a good place. That's a good place to live. Let's not talk about the place where, you don't even have that. And then you got a place like here, in the United States, where oh my God, it's like it's such an oppressive New World Order system. It sucks. I can't believe if you think you have any freedom in the United States of America in 2024. You've buried yourself so far into your phone and your computer that you have no idea what's going on around you, because you don't have the freedom that you think you have. And a lot of it was lost in the past 4 years. I spent this past year, because the spirits and etc. and just my own spirit just said it was time to really take another look at Bigfoot. Try to deal with my experience in 2017, and I filmed a lot of very interesting stuff. I don't even feel the urge to do it this year. I'll still do it, but I don't feel the urge to do it. I don't feel like it. There's nothing prompting me like last year. Last year, man, something was like guiding me to every spot. That's why I was getting some really awesome images. This year, I just like, really? I have zero desire to be a content creator and entertainer. I want to talk about this stuff. And I realize this is the only way I can have this kind of conversation. Unfortunately, Rebellious Meat Puppet, it'd be nice to hang out with him, but apparently he thinks he's too good for me. Hey, whatever, man. Too good, too good. There's a lot of people that take a card, stand in line. I don't give a crap. I reach out to people, try to befriend them, and it's always me that does it. I don't even know why I'd even bother. I don't even bother. I don't know why I bother. Well, my friend Eric, he did reach out to me today, so. But I don't know, man. Unless he's really, I don't want to go another round, bro. If you're out there, I don't want to go another round, man. I'm going another round. I have no desire to do it. I'd rather just be fucking alone. So I hope you worked on some of your demons, which I know it's going to take more than a couple of months. Anyways, you're throwing me on the bus. No, I ain't throwing you on the bus. I can't remember. Is it 1, 2, 3? I think we're in part 4. Or if not, if it sounds like a repeat, we got about 20 minutes of this. Let's enjoy it. Let's say a really good manly rant. A lot of F-bombs and swearing and pointing out all the flaws of this world that we live in. I think it's nice to hear it once in a while. Maybe the dude's chosen to be the angry, rebellious meat puppet. But you know what? And maybe that's what he needs to do. He needs to work it out and scream it out. I don't blame him. Be honest with you, sometimes I wish I could. But I just not my personality. That's when I start screaming and yelling at people, they're like, what the hell? It don't work. Some people got the personality. I don't got it. Anyways, let's get.
You'd think either one of them would be humble enough to be like, damn, dude, you were right. Damn, dude, you were right. No, because they couldn't humble themselves. They're arrogant. So I'm dealing with all that at the same time. So when the world's melting down, And then your fucking shit with your family's breaking down because they're not believing you because you're coming to realize what fucking normies they are, and you're never going to get through to them. And since they're your family, you're going to go way out of your fucking way, even if it, I guess, destroys the relationship. I would rather be in this situation where I destroyed the fucking relationships between my brother and my old man, and they actually didn't get injected, but they got the injections. They're fully in belief of what they did, and then the relationship was destroyed anyway. So it's like, you just got it. It's just like, wow, what a fucking shit sandwich. And then, to be honest with you, narcissists don't really help you out anyway when you're their kid, and they just don't. And if they do, it's usually a thing of leverage. They're going to use it over you, and it's usually with strings attached. It's not because you're their child and they love you, even if you're, because there were extenuating circumstances, considering, well, everything that happened with the lockdowns and the economic terrorism and the shutdowns of like supply chains and the whole 9 yards, man. And I have realized that there has been so little support, and what I'm saying is Team Lightside, spiritual, where the spirit forces, quote unquote, I'm generalizing, but I think you'll understand the point I'm trying to make, would bring the right person across your path, that kind of thing. But I suppose when they know what you think of them, I'm sure they decided not to. Something like that. I don't know. Now, another thing is I'm not sitting here deluding myself that I have some purpose that anybody else doesn't have. And let's say I did have a purpose. Okay, well, there's 8 billion other people. Anybody else could fulfill that role. So what's the big deal? Who gives a fuck? The world certainly doesn't give a fuck. The world certainly doesn't give a fuck. They certainly don't want to listen. And in fact, this world's so toxic. Look at the amount of shit, for instance, that I take for simply trying to be a light in this world and teach people things. This world doesn't want to learn or know or be turned on to higher level stuff, most of them. So there's been a big part of me as I've looked back and I'm like, so this is what I sacrificed everything to be in service to. I'm like, I don't know. And I just say that in the context of, for somebody that's a healer, in whatever capacity they do it, whether it's energy healing fucking small toes, or helping you heal your mind or your heart or whatever it is that ails you. I just lost my train of thought. Long-term memory loss, or long-term effects of short-term memory loss. I guess I would have expected that I would have been, quote unquote, looked out for a little better, doing what I did for what I thought was Team Lightside. And then I had to come to the realization that it was most likely synthetic synchronicity. I was most likely deceived. It was all done to lure and bait me, to create the circumstances where I would do it myself, kind of thing. I think there's an element to that is like about 99% fucking true. And that means what? I was never called by Team Lightside. It was just the perception that I got based off of what was happening, and they knew they'd play off my belief, which is a perfect deception. And then through that, there was nothing that was like, hey, yeah, that's not us. Yeah, we're over here. I didn't have any way of knowing that. And again, playing on my good character traits or qualities of, being a humanitarian, I didn't care. Unless you were a pedophile, I didn't care. So being in service to others would have been fulfilling. I was like, huh. And then all this is falling apart, life, the whole bit. I'm just like, again, these are the things that started to make me ask some of the deepest questions I've ever asked about how this reality works, what God is, look at our engineering, contemplate the human engineering, the non-physical components of us, the fact that we don't have any senses for the incorporeal, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Because can you point to any other person out there that is talking about this kind of stuff? And at the same time, remember that it's not psychobabble, because what I'm saying about the non-physical components of us, the way we're being attacked, the way they're manipulating us, the way that we're not doing any of the stuff, the know thyself stuff, that's all actually objectively true. So who else is out there explaining and telling you about these things? And who else has been out there explaining and telling these things to you for the last, I've been doing this for the last almost 6 years, but since the lockdowns, no. Lockdowns, for me, I left California October of 2020 and was in Florida and stayed there until April when I was asked to leave because I wouldn't fuck her, basically. That was like 2 years of homelessness. Now it's been another couple of months. So we're I'm like, really? Wow. And on top of all of that, when I heard Father Rippinger in his explanation about levels of spiritual warfare, when I heard that motherfucker say, this thing called God will let demons attack you externally, oppressively, and go after your finances, your job, or your health, or a few other things, to just fucking drive you, I'm like, God damn if that doesn't feel like, because since I left Virginia, I came back from Peru the third time. I stayed with my parents for a little bit, and then got a job in Virginia for like 10 or 11 months, saved enough money to go start life again, and went back to Phoenix. From that point on, when I left Virginia with 10 grand in my pocket to get to Phoenix and start life again. It was just like every effort that I put forth in the ways that I always have. Some of them much stronger. It was like there was some spiritual fucking, it's like I was trying to make a free throw and it would have been a nothing but net. Or maybe a few of them would have bounced back and forth off the rim, but still would have been a score. It's like there's some invisible force that's knocking away all of my efforts. No matter how hard I try, no matter how much effort I put in 2 extra hours a day, it still doesn't matter. And I'm just like, well, what the fuck? It's the most frustrating thing. And most people won't believe you. Most people won't believe you. They just won't believe you because they've never been on the receiving end of something like this and was consciously aware of it. Well, I was on the receiving end of it, and I knew something was happening, but I couldn't nail it down. I couldn't say, oh, there's demons potentially spiritually oppressing me. Until it's been 5 years since that shit went on. No, 5.5 years since that shit went on, and I finally heard that Rippinger guy explain what he did, and I'm like, God damn, if that doesn't fit what I've been dealing with for the last fucking 5 or so years. Things were a little okay. Things were okay when I got to the Bay Area, and I had my business. I was doing my thing for like a year and a half before the lockdowns happened. Life was fine for me financially, and I was doing plenty of videos over on BitChute and wasn't worried about or concerned about money at all. And some of those videos, like if you scroll down on my channel, you see that video where I've got a long beard and my hair was really long. I have glasses on. That was me sitting in my house before the lockdowns took place. You know, I had a home. I had fucking my desk and my computer and all my occult books and all my stuff, just all my stuff. And I was constantly reading and feeding my mind, did a wall dump. And then shortly after I did a wall dump, fucking ended up having to leave California. And then consecutively since then, every time I've had access and did one of these fucking major wall dumps within a very short period of time of that, rather than being able to really do something with it, I become destabilized in a way that is beyond my motherfucking control, and I never have the opportunity to put the time, the effort, the resources into taking these massive mind dumps and actually making good fucking decent presentations. It's like something is purposefully destabilizing me so that I can't, for instance, just one example, do presentations that would be similar to what Mark Passio does, meaning with the slides and the narration and stuff because I did tech and I've done those types of things that he does for technical purposes when you're doing documentation and shit. So I can do all that. I know how to use PowerPoint and set all that shit up. It just takes a lot of time, effort, resources, hours, and all that other shit to do it good. Well, it's real hard to do all that shit when you're fucking homeless, sleeping in your vehicle, fucking sleeping in a barn, sleeping in a fucking shed. Yeah, this is what I've been dealing with. So through all of that, I've been doing content, trying to teach people, crack minds, point things out. And it's fair to say that you guys that have watched my content, taken in my content over the last 4 or 5 years, you've seen me at what you could say has been probably one of the lowest points of my life. And I'm still doing content. And what I'm saying is, when you look at the core of the substance of what it is that I'm putting out, tearing apart beliefs, tearing apart reality, pointing people to beliefs, perceptions, mind, conscious, subconscious, putting all of this into the awareness, showing you that this is how we're being manipulated, showing you mind, emotion, psychology, sexuality, spirituality, human will, beliefs, perceptions, conscious, subconscious, and then, virtues like fucking self-discipline, self-control, all that stuff. This has been my fucking sole focus in life, even through homelessness, to try to get this information into the minds of those who are ready to receive it. And I mean this. Like, this isn't an issue of ego. This is literally legit. I think it is. The stuff that I've put forth, the stuff that I've put out there, if we could get humans to do it, and I don't think we could. It's a pipe dream. It'll never happen. I mean, if Jesus and Buddha couldn't do what they did, and they were like Jesus Christ and Buddha himself, a mere mortal like me, even with the greatest information, is never going to get it into the minds of fucking everybody. So I already know that. But if we could get what it is that I put out into the minds of everybody, and they actually did the work, which will likely never fucking happen, but it would be like an evolutionary leap in consciousness. Consciousness, just our state of being, our awareness, and how we operated in this reality, considering the level of evil that's here. See, and that whole thing about not meeting the minimum requirements of being a human in this reality, all that stuff has come forth. And when you look at what I'm suggesting there, that because we don't know thyself, we don't understand, therefore we can't meet the minimum requirements, therefore the evil motherfuckers are just destroying us in all of the ways that they're destroying us. All of that shit has come out of me, largely, through the pain and suffering of that dark night of the soul, half of which I was fucking homeless and in my truck, going through the deepest darkness the deepest darkness I'd ever known was the first half of that dark night. After the fact, it was dark, it was fucking, and my shadow was pretty front and center, but it wasn't nearly as dark as the first fucking year and a half. That was fucking brutal. I mean, goddamn, that was fucking brutal. It was like a demon came and fucking hooked himself to my hip like a Siamese twin for a year and a half while I was in the fucking abyss. Meaning the dark, heavy energy of it. Or maybe like a big, or like a dark, heavy Saturnian, which is Satan archetypally. So it fucking sucked, man. I'm like, how did this happen? And then once I got in there, and I was like, there's no way out. I don't know how to get out. I just kind of just accepted it and just kind of got used to being in that goddamn dark space for a year and a half. I didn't think I'd ever come out of it, to be honest with you. And then that one day I woke the fuck up, January 4th of 2020, and the eye of the storm. I was in the eye of that storm, the hurricane, if you will. And the front half of that storm was over, and I was in the eye. And I knew that I had a frequency in my ears from that point. And it's been 4 solid fucking years, and I've had frequency in both ears. Not a tone, not a ring-a-ding, not a hum, not a buzz. A frequency, a high-pitched frequency. And I never had it in my life for the previous 48 years of my fucking life. So something about the dark night, something about that halfway point, something about that fucking day when I've had a frequency in my ears for 4 fucking years now. I have no idea what the fuck it is. It's in stereo. It has not stopped. And in fact, there are certain points in which the volume of that frequency increases noticeably. And I have no idea what it is. Absolutely none. I know that the dark night is a very deep fucking spiritual fucking process. And there might be fucking demonic energy fucking tied to it. I don't know what the fuck it is. I don't know if you can pick up fucking energy at parasites or entities when you're that deep in the fucking abyss for a year and a half. I just don't know. But I'll be goddamned if that was the darkest fucking point in my period of existence I've ever had. But yeah, it's fair to say that what you've seen out of me has been over the last 4.5 years, or no, 3 years, I would say, since 2021 April, when I fucking finally made it home, became homeless. This has been me for some of it at some of my lowest points in fucking life. Homeless guy. Yep. When you start thinking all that like purpose stuff, maybe one of my purposes has been to put this fucking information out, seeing how even through homelessness I've been so hell-bent on trying to get this mind, using the internet, into the minds of people where it would most likely spread and reach the highest amount of people that might be looking for or be at a level of consciousness where if they stumbled across it, it would start to make sense. I would argue not a lot of people want to know. I doubt very seriously I'll ever have a channel that has hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but I'm not doing this for subs. But if hundreds of thousands of people subscribe to me, I would still be talking about the non-physical stuff. I'd still be talking about human development, human growth, relevant to the non-physical stuff, pointing out all the ways in which the system is attacking these things, making it obvious to people that we need to rethink being human. And like I said, meet the minimum requirements of being a human in this reality. And those requirements are dictated to us by the evil and what it does, and the lows that it will go to ensnare us, trap us, lie to us, and deceive us. And then we got to say, okay, well, it's willing to do that. What must we do to, and then we got to start looking at, well, mind, non-physical, emotions, non-physical. How do you manage all that? Oh, temperance, self-control, self-discipline, psychology, non-physical, sexuality, non-physical, very important. Spirituality, non-physical, very important. Your human will, non-physical, very important. When you start realizing that these are the very components of us that they've been going after, at what point do you develop a strategy to do something to yourself to make it so that what they do doesn't work anymore? See what I'm saying? You do all that work, all of a sudden you're at a higher level. Yeah, higher level. You literally like a leap in consciousness, if you will, an evolutionary leap, because at that point you know thyself. You've taken the steps to work on developing yourself in the non-physical, like you would take the time in the gym to chisel your body and try to, develop yourself into like the physique of an Adonis or something. Anyway, winding down, just so that it's said. So for those that don't know or have questions or are curious and they haven't actually heard me say it before, I was never homeless in this fucking life. I mean, when I was 19, I think I spent a week in my fucking car parked behind my girlfriend's house. But other than that, I've never actually been homeless. It wasn't until the lockdowns that, it was a little touch and go coming out of Virginia. It was a little touch and go, but I had a friend and I got a soft landing in Southern California, and it didn't actually get me. I didn't actually get there. And then from there, I went up to Bay Area and even started a business. So it really wasn't homeless. It got close, but I didn't get there. And I fucking started my own business for a year and a half thereafter, but I was in that fucking heavy darkness. So it wasn't until the lockdowns happened and they took out the small to medium businesses. And, there were some other circumstances at play as well, that made rebounding and recovering just a level of challenge that I wasn't prepared for. And I didn't have the template of what to do. And walking this spiritual journey, it's not like I have a lot of friends around me anymore. So I don't have a whole lot of people to consult, get advice from. So it's like I've really been all on my motherfucking own. I'm not boo-hoo. It's been a pain in the ass, though, when there's nobody that you know that you can consult or trust or get decent advice from. And when you're humble enough to realize you actually need it and there's just nobody to ask. For a lot of people, you might call your parents because they got 20, 25, 30 years on you, some wisdom of the years. Hey, Dad, what do you think? I don't have that. My fucking old man's a narcissist, and he's kind of dumb. So, there's not a lot of advice coming there. I mean, the advice of a normie, rarely you can get something. But, yeah. And that spiritual journey, or that waking up journey, you will start to shed friends. They will start to shed you, because you're operating at such different polarities as them. It just usually is the way it works. But if you wake up or you're on a spiritual journey, or you're doing inner work and evolving yourself, you're doing work that they're not. Your level of consciousness, your energy, all of you is going to change, and you're not going to be compatible with people that you once were connected to that aren't doing the same things, because you're going to create a gap. That's kind of the consequence of this stuff. Is it's a very lonely, solitary journey, and people that need to be around people and be validated all the time and all that other stuff, well, they won't do it because they don't want to be alone. So, again, in closing, for me, running into homelessness the way that I did at my age, you could say I didn't have a template to deal with this. I didn't have a template of knowing exactly what to do to, not be homeless, or I wouldn't have actually wound up in my fucking truck. I mean, that's fair. Nobody wants to be homeless. I mean, I knew the governments were rogue and fucked up, but seriously, who would have ever imagined they would have gone after the small to medium businesses? So that was the fatal blow for me, at least economically. And then the crazy thing is, it's the very thing that took my legs out from underneath me is the very thing that made my brother rich beyond his wildest dreams. And I got to see it for the first time in my life, what going from like not rich to rich, like kind of overnight, does to someone. Oh, it really reveals their true colors. And when they have money and they don't have to care about what you think about them anymore, oh, it'll show you what they really thought of you. And when I saw that my brother was willing to leave me homeless, like with $20 million in the fucking bank, I was like, whoa. And then I started putting together the triangulation from my father and the whole 9 yards. I was just like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. But this is who he is. This is who I never knew he would be. Yep, interesting. And isn't it interesting to have your brother basically rub some crumbs off the edge of his fucking table, and do it in a way where he didn't give you enough to actually get out of homelessness, when you humbled yourself enough to actually ask him, bro, would you help me get out of homelessness? That's a level of fucking, oh, that's nasty. And then to knowingly and willingly with that kind of coin, because we're blood, you know, if I had a brother that was fucking homeless and I had $20 million, that wouldn't be the case for him. I'd make sure he had at least a place to live. Or if he asked me to get him an apartment for a year so he could do it himself, I'd probably do that, because that would be less than getting him, you know, making sure he had a home or buying him a home or something. But that's just me. And then this next go around where this other supposedly rich guy, Stevie Boy, fucking starts doing a similar thing in a different way, in a much more grotesque and flagrant way. I was just like, wow, isn't it interesting to see what the underbelly of rich people, some of these rich people, and the display that Stevie Boy put on. I was just like, wow, you go ahead and show the world what you are there, buddy. And just in case you guys were curious, why do I always call him Stevie or Stevie Boy? Because I'm sure that's what his mommy called him. Anyway, that's what I got, people. Take it easy.
This world is not what you think it is.
Yes, world is not what you're thinking. Yeah, it's really nice going down through that dark night of the soul. You really know how much this world really is. Most people don't think will go through it. Most people are not capable of going through it. They'll go through a version of it, a small version of it, but it's enough for them. But the dark night of the soul will knock you in your ass, for real. I know that because that's what I've been going through for 12 years. One way or another. Of course, Bigfoot was part of that story, but it's not all of it. That's why I keep saying that Bigfoot's not all of it. Bigfoot's not even an answer. Now, he's part, my interaction with Bigfoot and Sasquatch, whatever I call it, certainly helped me with my waking up process and realizing certain things, like develop more courage, facing the darkness, facing the unknown. But I also, it doesn't have any answers any more than anything else does in this world. As far as fixing it, just more cult mentality. Yeah, I feel for the man. It sucks. It must suck that I go through all that stuff. Of course, I've gone through all that stuff too. I've had all sorts of shit thrown at me in the past 12 years. I still have a roof over my head for now, but I'm waiting for that to drop at some point too. But, the health thing, and he still has health, and regardless, and yeah, it's a difficult thing. Life is difficult. This soul trap matrix, it's what it is. It's not designed to teach you anything. It's designed to milk you dry of your emotions, your feelings, to suck the power out of you, recycle you, and bring you back. Have another round. See, you don't remember previous lives, if there is such a thing. If there is such a thing as reincarnation, we don't remember any previous lives. People might, through hypnosis or whatever, might have a bit of memory, but it's usually something pretty stupid and lame it means something to them, but when you listen to what they have to say, you're just like, oh, heaven's so much wonderful, much better on the other side. You know what I mean? So that just goes to show you that brings, if you're really thinking straight, yeah, why is it so much better on the other side? Why do we have to suffer here? Oh, it's to learn lessons. What? To suffer? Yeah, it's just to suffer. We'll give you somebody to fall in love with. They'll break your fucking heart. We'll give you children, but they're going to drain you dry in every way, shape, or form. And then they're going to disappoint you. Then you're going to find out about yourself. And you're going to hear all this stuff and you're going to say, man, this dude's really negative. Am I really negative? The truth is pretty negative. Most people don't want that. So they want this thin veneer of love, 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 love. The purest form of louche. And that's how they'll trap you on the other side too, because they're going to love bomb the living hell out of you. You're going to feel love for the first time that you ever can remember. And they're going to take you right into the light, recycle you, send you right back here. The next time you'll even maybe have a worse life, or maybe it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. There's a special script just designed for you. Of chaos, which is absolutely amazing. You see it in the Bigfoot community. You see it in everything. How's come in 2024 we still don't know jack shit about anything? About the deeper issues, you know what I mean? And what we do know is that we live in a meat suit, a meat puppet, if you will. The avatar is just riddled with thousands of genetic flaws. We're designed so we can't even function in this real world like that rabbit that I see every day in my front porch. It's got fur and it's happy. It's eating the grass and it's, happy to see me because, he knows I'm going to go back in that house. I don't know what to say except that I do know what to say. We live in an absolute freaking shit show, a nightmare. But people can't see it. See what they've done to us. They've designed such a brilliant system of entertainment, capturing your mind, that you have your awareness of your surrounding is so minuscule at this point. You cannot recognize that you are enslaved, that you actually live in a box like a caged rat, and that you're going to travel in a box. You're not going to, with 4 wheels, right? And then you're going to spend a lot of money to even travel in that box with tolls, gas, whatever, maintenance. And then you go to your work, and that's going to be in a box as well. And you're just boxed in, and it's only getting tighter. And people say, well, what are we supposed to do about it? Well, maybe the first thing to do is get honest about what the fuck's really going on. Another thing that he didn't do that I did is I really did fall my sword for you guys. I literally did for 2020 to 2021 and in 22. I was every day warning people about the global eugenics program, what was afoot. I was with person out on the street with the signs. I know that the people are walking around right now. Well, I don't know right now, but in 2021, magnetic. I mean, literally could have keys sticking out them all over the place. My brother was one. He couldn't handle it. So my mother being taken out by it, and then with a blood clot. This is how fantastic the whole situation is, right? And this is how crazy the shit show is. Once you start waking up to this, the dark night of the soul is really bizarre. So you're going to have a lot of weird things happen to you. And it's like, I can't believe what's happening to me. So my sister ended up moving on the same street that I live. They ended up getting a home, putting $350,000 in restoring it. And it's in a place, it's a nice place, and it's really near the place, the home that my son, the home that, how do I say this? I live in the daddy place. The home that I help pay for, the home that he spends half the week at, the home in which she gets $10,000 a year for to help pay for the cottage and everything else and the nice car and not on her son. Anyways, that place. So it's just pretty close to where I'm at too, right? I can only imagine what the purpose of all this is. I live in absolute dump. My son still spends half the week or more with me. She doesn't contribute at all. She gets everything, child support and everything. Doesn't help out with food or anything. Nothing. And my sister, she is literally never invited me over once. It's only called me once. I'm not calling her. You know why? Because she's too good to come into this house. That's how bad it is. And I'm just like, fuck you. I mean, if you think you're that superior to me just because of the house. Oh, she's a devout Roman Catholic. She teaches at a Roman Catholic school. My brother, big brother, he can talk to me. He can't. It's amazing how Christians can't be honest about anything. I mean, it makes you an absolute monster. You don't even realize it. Lying all day long. Not listening to the other person. Didn't have a clue about me. And at this point, I just don't want to reach, because I'm just so sick of being slapped in the face, disrespected, treated like I'm 56 years old. You know, I mean, this is how fucking shitty the whole goddamn thing's. My mom, when she passed away, we buried her in 2021. You know, on her tombstone, they still haven't put the date on when she was buried. They haven't engraved it in yet. And I just look at my sister and go, you really love your mom that much that you can't finish up that business. You're the people with all the money. You got a husband that makes all that money. And you just restored that fucking house. And you don't even care enough about your own mom. Now, I would do it. The problem is MS has progressed to the point where I can't do it. I don't have enough money. I'm a single father. Every month it's you know, I got to stretch every penny. I don't have money I haven't even bought nice clothes for myself in years. And the one, somebody actually a year ago was on this channel, and I wasn't talking that way, but he obviously recognized. He said something about my clothing, and he sent like $40 for the clothing. But you know what I ended up doing? Because he said he was a Christian. And I said, well, okay. And he says, you do whatever you want with it. I found 2 people who needed that money more than I did. And I gave it to them. And both of them weren't Christian. At the time, I was still claiming to be one. But my whole, I think, the Sasquatch in a lot of ways was like that release valve for me as I was deconstructing from Christianity. Because that was the one thing I had left to hold on to, about to believe in, right? Is that maybe there's truth in this Jesus thing. Well, it turned out there's no truth in any of that, except there's an egregore, some kind of evil force that really brings a lot of demonic forces into your life. Now, you might think it's all nonsense, but if you really look into it and really pay attention to what's going on in your life, you're going to find out that it's absolutely the truth. These things, just like that priest, that Roman Catholic priest says, God brings demons in your life to bring you closer to him. You know what I mean? That's what it says. That's what the Bible even says. The Bible says the God of the Bible created good and evil. That's right. That's just good. It's not just love, but evil. So, Sasquatch should help me to in a lot of ways. I mean, for one thing, I think it actually first encounter might have saved me from the pro-Indian medicine man. That's a whole nother story. But then, then it helped me to realize, it took me a long time to accept it, but that there's no power in the name of Jesus. This is important stuff. And they call upon the name of Jesus might actually cause more problems than good for you. It's like it has for me and many others. A lot of people don't talk about that. They don't talk about that. It's bad enough to just talk about Jesus in the Bigfoot community, but actually talk about Jesus for what it really is about, now you're really in trouble, because now you got everybody hating your guts, from atheists to Satanists to Christians to everything, right? And then when you really find out about this Bigfoot community, which is really important, there is no answer. It's just clicks. It's just the same fucking high school cliquish bullshit that's going on, and it's all being managed by the government and spooks, and it's the truth. a lot of ex-military guys. Everyone's involved in it, muddying the water. When any of us who's actually had encounters with these things, there is a connection. There's the paranormal. Weird things happen. The UFOs and all that kind of shit. But, when we say UFOs, I'm not talking about like, clankety metal, nuts and bolts machinery. I'm talking about things in the sky. Lights, things that move, orbs, that kind of stuff. Stuff that, what the hell it is. And then on top of that, then you get the paranormal stuff and the weird shit that shows up, the hitchhiker effect and all that. Can't talk to me about that. But you know what? That's what happens with this Bigfoot stuff. And then, the flesh and blood things. And I was listening, I wanted to have Kreider on. I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's probably too big for his britches to have a small channel. If I had thousands before, I'm sure he would have. But I don't give a fuck. So I mean, because it's to me, I listened to him stuff in his presentation, and it's just like he's very articulate. But the problem is, if you can't read between the lines, the contradictions, then he'll just suck you in. The problem is, it all comes down to this: he doesn't have any evidence that Bigfoot is doing any of that stuff. It's just assumptions based on some things he's not familiar with. But if there's, again, who's to say it's not the paranormal? Who's to say it's not these trickster spirits that are just fucking with his head? Like the Native Americans, many of the cultures say is happening. See, the Sasquatch not going to save you guys. And Bigfoot, it's just another piece of the puzzle of this giant matrix they're all stuck in. Because it really is a soul trap matrix. And it's designed to capture your mind completely, your body, everything about you, and just to have you as units of loose production. To feed these archonic forces. These forces, these entities, these spirits, you want to call them demons, whatever the hell you want to call them, it doesn't really matter. Because I'm sure the only reason why it's even in our psyches, because it's the wrong thing to call them. Because scapegoating is an excellent tactic, and it's used constantly. People are always focused on a single person. That's why do you think we have President of the United States for? But we said the President of the District of Columbia. He's the CEO of Washington, D.C. He's not of the United States of America. So anyways, so we got the propped up fantasy king, and what is it? He's designed to have you send your hate and love it. Focus on him while the people, the managers, the plutocracy and the oligarchs are running the show, right? Including the monarchies, the uber rich, right? Let them run the show. They'll use the military and the government and all their different programs to keep you enslaved. And it's all a tactic, and they're going to pull the plug on us at some point. That's what they have to do. It's because it's part of the human sacrifice thing. So in the meantime, we're, they're allowing, us to live longer, but are we really living? Are we really living like our ancestors? Our ancestors are much more every day. Yeah, it was a struggle, but there was a sense of urgency and living and that kind of stuff. And it doesn't mean they weren't producing revolution and they weren't suffering their own way. They're doing it different this way. This time around, in certain parts of the world, like we're at in the United States, in certain pockets, they're just going to let us sit here and rot in isolation, and you just have the diseases. They're going to govern your life from cradle to grave until they figure it all out. And our great-grandchildren are going to be totally fucked, and nobody's going to do a damn fucking thing about it, and they never did. And that's the problem. So if you put all your faith in government, in the military, and the cult that you belong to, in the group, or in Bigfoot, or whatever it may be, and if you don't think that people are eager to fucking stab you in the back, do anything for a buck, absolutely they'll do it. They'll absolutely do it, especially if it makes it so that it's easier for them to, to eat the slop that they can eat and feel like they're the most important thing in the world and feed their egos. See, I don't care about any of that. I'm doing this this is cathartic. This is therapy for me. I don't got anybody. I can't dump this on my son. So I'm just dumping this on the ether. It's only so long. You're just like, if you talking to yourself, you might as well fucking record it. You might as well tell people what you're really up to. What the fuck? Who cares? I don't care if the government knows. I've already had them running through my garbage. I've already had them ruin my life. Why do you think I have MS? See, I don't have any faith in the system. I mean, you could love bomb me all day long, and it will just bounce right off me. I know the fuck's going on. I absolutely do know what the hell's going on. And the problem is, you and I are in deep trouble. You don't realize it. And you're coming back. We're all coming back if we don't figure it out. For another round of misery and shit and pissing and moaning, spilling our seed and eggs. Oh no, it's maybe the 2 generations now women will be back on, menstrual huts. They say, oh yeah, I know we gave you the pad and the tampons, but sorry, we're taking them away. They're all causing cancer and all this other shit. You're back on you're sitting on sitting in that menstrual tub, hut, bleeding away. You think that's crazy, right? But that was just a few generations ago. That's how in fact, in some places, it's still going on. Or just a generation ago, women were still having to do that. Now think about the creator that created the women that go through that shit. Your God don't love you. He just wants to have you to have suffer or misery. There is no God. That's the problem. The super force is in, like the DSA, it's an impersonal, non-loving. It doesn't give a shit about you. It just needs your loose along with the other entities that feed off it. They need you to produce as much loose through your existence. Some of us will live a long time. I've had health issues since I've been a child. Every single day of my life. I look back, everything was really fine until they started injecting me with shit when I was a kid. Next thing you know, head started being cloudy. Next thing you know, my eyesight went bad. I went from being, my dad was like an all-state tailback in high school, played for Army in 1950s. He survived the Korean War. My big brother was a Green Beret. What the fuck happened to me and my little brother? And my sister, for that matter. I'll tell you what happened. They experimented the fuck on us and ruined us. This is a new experimental drug for those who have, because my mom was Rh negative, my dad was Rh positive. So there's a problem with that, right? They're having a problem with, miscarriages and all that kind of stuff. Well, we'll fix it. So nature takes its course, and, you end up suffering. The kid suffers forever and a day. And I'm not making this shit up. And then on top of that, they still kept on experimenting on us. And they still and are doing it today. It's not just my family, it's everybody. It's shit, I spent, my niece lives 18 years paralyzed and head down because of their freaking shit. Their infant shit. The last 8 years of her life, I spent every day taking care of her, giving her a bath, taking care of her, taking her to parks, crying, breaking down, and saying, where the fuck is God and all this shit? How can this possibly be? You know what happened? As a reward for doing the right thing and being a great son, they gave me MS with their jab. So the last year of her life, I had, I had to, and I couldn't handle it. I just could not handle it. I visited her once or twice a month, but I couldn't handle it. Because I watched her deteriorate in that place, and they took her out. She got sepsis, and where her G2 was, because they wouldn't clean it properly. They took her out. And you know what? It's probably best that she was taken out. How she went about it is terrible. So she had to suffer 18 years in the last year of her life. She had to suffer pain and misery and everything, and I couldn't do anything about it. So I had to have that great joy of bonding with my niece, and then watching the last year of my life not fucking be able to do a fucking thing for her. You tell me there's a goddamn God. You know what? There ain't a God there. If you think there is one, you have no fucking clue, and you haven't paid the price yet. You haven't done the things you're supposed to do. You're hiding behind your fucking religion and your God because you know what? You don't want to do the hard work and do the work that's necessary. March through your fucking dark night of the soul. You know what Sasquatch is part? That's part to help you get through that. It ain't a demigod. It ain't going to save you. What it's going to do, if you're really dealing with these things, you're going to face a part. You can face something about you. You're going to face the fear and the wimpy shit that you are, and you're going to find some courage is what's going to happen. That's what's going to fucking happen. That's all that's going to happen. That's part of the life transformation. It's not a continuous thing. It's not a demigod. It's not going to save you. The fucking thing is not the. Then you listen to this shit that like Henry's saying and everyone else lying their asses off about shit. I want to tell you something. If Bigfoot really is fucking working on the ground in these military and is involved with this shit and is managing us, it's the worst fucking monster that I ever fucking. You know, who gives a shit if it was 10 foot tall and can rip you apart in the woods? The fact of the matter, if Henry's saying anything that's true, then we're really in deep shit. I'm not saying he's saying anything that's true, but I'm going to tell you this much. If you think that there are not dark forces in the Bigfoot community, don't want nothing more than to make you look like a pile of fucking shit, you don't have a clue what's going on. And you'd be lucky, at the end of the day, in the Bigfoot community, have one trustworthy fucking friend. You will be lucky. You might think you have them now, but you don't have them now. It's long term. And they will truly know what you fucking gone through. All this fucking half-ass fucking talk about Sasquatch is just it's so fucking stupid. It's ridiculous. That's why I said I don't think you will. I don't think this community is designed even for you to even find out the truth about Bigfoot or anything else. I think it's there to have you go down one whole rabbit hole after another and never ever come to the truth. They don't want you to know the truth of what's going on. Next thing you know, they're going to tell you that the president of the United States is Sasquatch. Just wait and see. The Pope actually is a Sasquatch. It's a half-breed. I mean, it's all fucking stupid. It gets so ridiculous. The number of things that are going on, the number of institutions, people, entities that are non-human, that are fucking with us, just on this one slice, one sliver of our reality is absolutely amazing. And people are too dumb to realize they're being useful dupes and being used because they're too worried about fucking numbers. And they're worried about fucking making a living off Bigfoot, which you ain't gonna do. But what is going to happen is if you don't do your work and do work that dark night of your soul and face who you are and face what's going on here, you know what's going to happen? This shit's going to use you and spit you out. Just like every other cult. And you're going to be left empty and hopeless. You're going to keep so trained. And this happens to us all. We're like Pavlov's dog. Keep going back to the shows. Keep going back to the lies. Always about Jesus. It's about Bigfoot, or then it's about Jesus, or it's about politics, or it's about the war, or about the Freedom Convoy in Canada, or it's about the Jibby Jab, or it's about the Illuminati, or it's about the football. Everything is about everything other than you. Did you recognize that? Everything is to distract you from you. I don't have eloquent words. I don't want to have eloquent words. I read a lot of the stuff that Meat Puppet reads, and I don't use those words. I am just who I am. I'm a dude who's gone through fucking bullshit for 56 years, and I'm not making it up. Some of it I've contributed to, but most of it I do. I recognize clearly that it was a life script that was handed to me to produce the most loosh. And some of you even have it fucking worse. And that's in fact, the whole hell of a lot of you have a lot worse than me, which really troubles the fuck out of me. I know dudes who have been responsible of unliving and killing hundreds of people, maiming them, children, all sorts of things. Didn't get to go through all that shit. And living through it every single day and knowing what you fucking did. I'm not condemning the dude. Because you know what? He was put in the position. What else was he? He didn't know any better. He was a dumb fuck like everyone else. But I'm going to tell you what, all that suffering he had, and there is no karma, by the way. No karma being paid. All you have to do is see the most evil, most rotten freaking people in the whole damn world run this place. If you want to be the biggest scumbag, the number one drug lord, guess what? You're going to be president of the United States one day. You are made of the right stuff. Going to be a pope, man. You're going to be responsible for all sorts of atrocities. Yeah. And there is no karma. Because they're not going to come back and pay for that shit. They will come back. Just like everyone else will. To have another round to produce as much solution as possible. They won't remember what their past life is. You won't. Nobody remembers their past lives. Nobody knows what's after this life. You'll claim and you'll say you know, but we do a grand job of lying to ourselves and convincing those lies are absolutely 100% true. And we won't budge. Because that false security blanket is what we need. That's all we need, right? Like a dumb animal, that's all we freaking need. But it will crumble. And when you cross to the other side and you see that freaking light, you're going to go to it. You know why? Because you're going to be feeling the most elated, most ecstatic, most pure love you've ever felt in your life. You're like, oh, I finally find myself home. Come with us. Welcome home. It'll have some image, some projection that will convince you that one of your relatives. Somebody, and it'll be the most stupid, mundane, shallow conversation. But you'll be in a daze like you're fucking all stoned out of your gourd. And if that doesn't work to get you in the light, then you're going to see things that look like Bigfoot and Dogman and all these other cryptids, and they're scared to live the fuck out of you. So that's the part about this, one of the little secrets about you having these encounters and seeing these things and preparing yourself and getting to know what you're fucking looking at so you're not afraid when it shows up, because that's going to be nothing but a goddamn show. And you know what? That's not something that's original to me. All you have to do is look into this shit. If you believe in Jesus, guess what's going to show up on the other side? Jesus. It's going to change your life. If you believe nothing but, and all you think about Sasquatch, what's going to show up on the other side? Oh, loving brother Jim Sasquatch. And he's going to send you right into the fucking light. I think the only way that I can tell right now, the only way to even escape this matrix is somehow you have to first accept it. It is what it is. And hopefully there's not a major cataclysmic event, because these resets, these grand resets, they seem to have, whenever there seems to be a correlation when the populace, when human beings start to realize how screwed they've been and what they're really in, this enclosed system, that they're going to fucking go, just like they've done it over and over again. We're collectively, we're going to try to find a way out. And right now, it's just the beginning stages. Those rockets aren't going to get you out of here. No, some station in the moon's not going to get you fuck out of here. Because if it's any close to being true, we're eternal beings. We're packets of energy, right? We're beings that are not always, and vast majority of the time, is not in these meat suits, unless we get recycled in. to this thing, and then we go right back into the pain and the suffering and the shitting and pissing and the whining and the and the hunger pains and the confusion and all the, I mean, it's just fan-fucking-tastic, really, this whole invention. The guy that made this just fucking just loves the hell out of us. And the convenient excuse of all excuses, some chick did it. Hey, it was Eve. It's her whole fault. Hey, my fucking fault, man. It's that bitch's fault. And you know what? That's exactly how it works here, right? The scapegoating is endless. The fake and believe stories are endless. The fables are endless. And when you really start breaking this shit down, you realize you're living in nothing but a very fictitious, delusional life. You are not what you think you are. The people around you are not what you think they are. The place that you're in is not what you think it is. Those beings that you think you're interacting with, and you are not Sasquatch alone. In fact, you'd be lucky if one actually is a Sasquatch. But you will, like all the rest of us do, we all do it. We'll just like, that's a Sasquatch. That's a, you have footsteps. Oh, it's got to be a Sasquatch. Static electricity surrounded me, and if my car died, got to be a fucking Sasquatch. Sasquatch. It's like and they're really doing it, just like, remember Timothy O'Leary and the fucking all the drugs he was, you know what I mean, and the acid shit, right? And the stage fucking the 1960s hippie movement, the bands and all like the CIA driven freaking the Grateful Dead. Right? It's all about love and peace, brother. Let's get high. Free sex. No such thing as free sex. I'm sorry to disappoint you. No such thing as free sex. Oh, no, man. That chick, she screwed half the guys, where we're camping at. It's all free sex, man. She'll sleep with you. And you check out this chick, and you're like, holy shit, she's so strung out on heroin and everything else. There ain't no way in hell I'm going to take advantage of this chick. No way. Meanwhile, everyone else is doing it because that's how this world works. And you're in a delusional, or you know what? Or you do what I do. See, I decided to become a hermit. I'm a hermit because I don't want to deal with the bullshit anymore. Oh, it's going to come with a vengeance. I know it was. The price always to be paid. So I know that this decade so of reprieve and break it's only temporary. Something's coming along to put a ton of stress on me and to produce as much fucking loose as possible. But in the meantime, I'm taking advantage of this break to really assess myself, assess this world, and find a way to get the fuck out. Because so far I haven't found an answer. I've heard some suggestions, and maybe there is no way out. And if that's the case, then maybe that's what needs to be taught to everybody, is there's no way out and you're coming back. So maybe you should eat, drink, and be merry. No, you can't do that. We need social order. We got to have the structural order. If you do that, I think chaos will happen. Really? The same system. Who started World War II and won? Who bombed the living hell and ruined all those countries and all those lives? I mean, that 200. Who's talked earlier about the 250 million that died in the for genocide? That's not including the wars. That's not including all the other wars. That's including all the fucking shit that happens on a yearly and a monthly, weekly, and daily basis. Those people don't get counted. They always lie about the numbers. They tell you there's 1 million that died in the war. Multiply that by 3, it's more like 3 million. They're never going to tell you the truth because they don't want you to know what's really going on. But this place is all about producing loose. If you haven't done it, you haven't been around it for what, you're going to have it. It's going to happen to you. It's already happened today. You stubbed your toe. I cut my foot doing something, right? It kept me from fucking go out and field researching, right? Put in the new storm windows in because my balance is really bad, and I got nobody to help me. And you said, well, it's your fault. You could have a woman. I don't want to put a woman through what I'm going through. I have compassion. To go through the dark night of your soul is a fucking bitch, figuratively speaking. And there ain't no easy way through it. And I'm not dragging anybody else with me. I have a son. I can't just play games. I can't play games. I can't play games with some relationship and play the stupid games that produce the fucking primo louche. Pretend love. I mean, the first couple of months is fantastic, isn't it? If I was younger again, of course. I'm older now. I don't care about it. But that's not even the point. The point in all this is that we are in a situation that people aren't being honest about. Churches aren't being honest about. Science isn't being honest about. Bigfooters aren't being honest about. Nobody seems to want to be honest about much of anything. Because the problem is, all this love and good vibrations and all that kind of shit, you know who wants you to do that? You know who is trying to convince you to fucking say, oh, it's all about love? Is these archonic forces, these entities, these beings on the other side. It's primo louche. Let's all love each other, man. It's not about love. Just love. Love. Meanwhile, it's only temporary, and the facade wears off, and you're going to go back to screwing people over, taking advantage of people. You're going to say you don't do it. You're going to lie about shit, and you're going to say you didn't do it, but you did it. You're going to exaggerate about shit, and you're going to do it. You say you don't do it, but you know you do it. You know, how many people have enough guts? I mean, I'm like the only person I know that if I fuck up and I said something wrong, I try to correct it, or I'll literally make my amends. I'll say I'm sorry. I say I fucking was wrong. I don't hear that from anybody else. When I listen to people, they're so blind. They really believe the bullshit that's coming out of their fucking mouth. The Bigfoot community is probably the worst. That's what I said. It's a draw between the Christians and the Bigfoot community. But now I'm discovering about the UFO community, and I know enough about the paranormal community. It's like if you can find one honest person in any of these communities, man, try to connect with them and hold on to them. You know what I mean? Don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about popularity. Don't worry about what other people think about it. That person, if they really are honest, and I mean, shit. And they respect honesty, and they were trying to come to find the truth about something, and they value that person. But most people, they don't give a shit. They already think they got it figured out. It's all about the numbers. It is about this is business, baby. Nothing personal. It's just business, right? It's got to make a living doing something. I mean, and the Bigfoot community, all these big names, they all act like, and everyone kisses each other's ass. And I'm like, I can't fucking believe what I'm seeing here. Oh, there he is again. You know what? I like talking to people that nobody knows about. When they come on my shows, I love saying hi to them. They might only have like 100 subs, and they're doing their own thing, and they're doing something just a little bit different. I'm going to say hi to them. But you know what? If you got 20,000 subs, 50,000 subs, I'm going to kiss your fucking ass. I could fucking give a shit about that. And you know what? I guarantee you that nobody's putting as much time into someone else in this community as I have. When I have somebody as a guest in any way, shape, or form, I put the time, the day, to really get to know the person and watch their stuff. So when they show up for their fucking hour or two and they act like they've done a great favor, they haven't done shit for me compared to what I've done for them. They haven't. They're too delusional. They don't know that. Until you are the host, you have fucking no idea how much time it is to do it properly. Most people, they're just like, I need someone to be on the show. And they go along in this, the party lines and the parrot, the same fucking thing that everyone does, whether it's Bigfoot community or politics or the religion. It's just scripted things that people just agree on saying. And it's like no one ever fucking that's going to challenge anybody. It's just a this ass kissing convention. And I mean, it's pathetic. I mean, the artists in the Bigfoot community are freaking guys. Some of you guys are criminal. You guys, you're giving all these false images of what Bigfoot looks like. Well, this is what I think it looks like. This is what all the drawings are. You ever fucking see a Bigfoot? None of them look. They don't look like anything that those artists' renderings are doing or sharing. They literally don't, except that they got hair on them. They look big, right? At least they look like they got hair on them. But most of the time, their fucking faces are fucking crazy looking. Now, tell me, how is that possible? I can make up all sorts of bullshit things, but at the end of the day, how is that possible? I am so amazed at the absolute bigfootery that's going on. I really, and then when I try to find someone that's really legit, their ability to discern is so fucking fucked up. They don't have a clue who they can trust or trust in people that I wouldn't trust. I wouldn't throw the 10 ball or whatever the fuck. What's the phrase? I just wouldn't trust these people, right? I wouldn't trust them with it. My life depended upon it. I know I can sense a con artist. I can see a mile away. I've had the fortunate experience of the past several months to get to hang out with half a dozen. A big name, Mr. Bigfooters, you know what I mean? That's what they say they are, at least. And I know what they are. They're con artists. It's just fucking con artists. They're deceived in their own right, and they're conning everyone else. And it's just ridiculous. So, I mean, for me, until someone can actually give me a real answer to what I dealt with in 2017, I'm on my fucking own. This is a waste of fucking time to listen to all the big names, even to have them on, to even interview them. I don't even want to. Not unless you're going to have a real conversation and get fucking solid about this stuff. The first thing you're going to have to do is be honest about the fact that we're not being honest about shit. We're chasing fucking ghosts, people. That's what we've been doing the whole fucking time. I know it doesn't make people happy, but all the evidence says that we are chasing something that's a poltergeist, paranormal, that appears at times to be solid and real, but then magically just everything just makes so much sense. You know what I mean? There's massive fucking these things don't need. You know what? Oh, they're so smart and so clever. They never leave a trace of where they've been, except for fucking footprints. And when you ever hear anybody say, "Hey, it's always the same thing," they'll make up shit. The Flesh and Blood are really good at it. And then the sacked out, whacked out fucking New Agers, oh yeah, starts fucking speaking in tongues and acting like they're fucking Pentecostals for Bigfoot. It's crazy, the whole damn fucking thing. And you think, I'm saying that, but it's not like the Bigfoot community is any different than any other communities. It's so hard to find anybody to have an honest conversation, straight up, blunt. Let's just say it that way it really is. And any walk in life, they might do it one-on-one, but most aren't going to talk this way even on YouTube, or even on BitChute. So I'm just telling you right now that we're fucked. We're in a soul trap matrix, and we are it seems to be a reincarnation of soul trap matrix. And whatever these archonic forces are, these invisible beings from the other side, they're tricking us. They're fooling us. They're messing with us. And I'm sorry, Bigfoot's not going to save you. The transformation process is to gain courage, to find yourself. It's not meant to fucking be your next demigod and to see it fucking happening. And you might ask, you truthers, you intellectuals out there say, well, what the fuck? Why do you keep on talking about Bigfoot? Obviously, you don't know shit about this world if you don't know something about that thing that they call Bigfoot. Until you fucking see one of those goddamn fucking things 15 feet, 10 feet in front of you. And you know what? I don't feel special about saying that. I feel like I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? I can't even find one person knows what the fuck they're talking about this, what I just went through. And it was just dumped on my lap. And I'm going to tell you something. There's something wrong with this place. It doesn't prepare you for those moments. It doesn't tell you the truth about anything. People argue and debate about shit they know nothing about all fucking day long and act like they're fucking know-it-alls. The politics, your politics, you know what? You've never voted for anybody in your goddamn fucking life. You just thought you did. How many choices you really have outside of putting that fucking candy bar in your mouth? Or not? It's getting worse, people. For many of us, I guarantee, if all you do is open up your eyes, anybody who's been around for fucking 50 years or more knows that the freedoms are being taken away systematically. The noose around our necks has been tightening ever more, and they're going to hang our fucking asses. And Sasquatch is not going to save you. Native Americans aren't going to save you. Jesus is not going to save you. All these things that you've been offered up, have been coughed up to you by other delusional people is not going to fucking save you. The atheists aren't going to save you. The religious is not going to save you. Nobody's going to fucking save you. There'll be times when people might be there to help you, to keep it going. And that all depends on your life script, you see. Because your life script might actually say that you are going to suffer. Maybe the life script that this, Meat Puppet is his life script that he's going to be homeless for the next fucking 20 years. That's the script. And they're going to go, when you go to the other side, they're going to say, that's what you agreed on. And of course, you're going to, oh, yeah, I did. Of course, if anybody knew what they were agreeing on when they came here, no one else would come here. And people, it's really negative, man. Really dark. Yeah, that's what this place is. You know what? You can put all the lipstick on the pig that you want. It's still going to be the same thing. The only people that are fooling are yourselves. There's archonic forces. There are beings around here, folks. There are things. They're all around us. And here's a good question. Why the fuck did they hide from us? And why do they design us in a meat suit so we can't see what's fucking watching us and observing us? That would be too much for if you knew the truth. You wouldn't be able to handle it. Really? What kind of a shit show is this? Not be able to handle it? You mean things are even worse on the other side? Is what you're trying to fucking say? Because that's, I think, exactly what's going on here, folks. This is like fucking, I think what they do to us is this, they convince us that this is vacation. Because it is, in a way. So you're the next winner. You got a ticket to go produce Lelouch down to planet Earth for the next 50, 60, 70 years. You know what? And he's like, oh, thank God, it's great because all the shit around me here and this other side is such a fucking nightmare. It's ridiculous. I'll take it. It's like saying, you're telling some people are starving and they're in a, and there's no food and no shelter, and they say, hey, guys, I got a better option for you. You want it? Yeah. Just come with us. We'll go to the concentration camp. You can hang out there. There's a food every week. There's shelter and all that. You'll get food every day. Yeah. Well, they worked them to death. Of course, it seems like a better deal than what it was, right? Because what do you have? You have the choice of two evils. And you know what? You're going to try to. The meat suit is designed so that you will fight to your last breath to survive, one way or the other. I always find it amazing those people because usually the people are truly strong enough to do it. They really do end their life on their own terms, if you will. If you're on drugs and stuff like that, or OD'd, or that's not doing it on your own terms, right? On your own terms. You say, I've had enough, and that's it. By the same token, I'm impressed with those people who realize what this place is, and they decide to be a fucking thorn in its side. Because this matrix is a fucking piece of shit. And to the last day, my last breath, I will be exposing it one way or the other. Because I resent the fact that I was tricked to come here. And I resent the fact that I know that my son's going to have to go through all sorts of shit. Your children have to go through all sorts of a whole bunch of shit. Your great-grandchildren are. You have fucking no idea what's around the corner. But history will tell you, and it ain't good. For us, but for the things to the other side, oh boy, man, the food, the loot that they're going to get, oh man, primo. Primo. Sorry for ignoring it, folks. I didn't mean to. It's just right. We are screwed. Anyways, I'm going to watch. I see to pull this off. If those are here, tell me if you have problems with hearing it, because what I want to do is I want to play. I want to play this video from a week or two ago, maybe a week ago. The last live that Forever Conscious Research Channel did. Tom Campbell thinks endless reincarnation is completely logical. NDE, assimilation, exit matrix. Anyways, him and Dan do a really good show, and I want to let me know if you can't hear it. Well, let's listen to it. I want to introduce you guys to this channel. I introduce you to the meat puppet himself. So let's hear this channel, because it is very insightful. If you really listen to what they're saying, you'll be like, "Fuck, I really believed all that stuff." Check this out. Yeah, tell me when I start playing this video if it sounds good. Please. Patrick, whoever's there. You guys are going to like it. Anybody who wants to know the truth is going to like it.